Welcome to Game Day. Game 3 of the NBA Western Conference playoffs continue tonight. The venue switches to the Bay Area and San Francisco, to be precise, as the Golden State Warriors host the Houston Rockets. Hi again, everybody, and welcome in to Warriors This Week. Dan Avone along with you. Pasta, good morning to you. It is 9 o'clock, and Shedeur Sanders is still waiting. That's for another show, for another time. Good job, by the way, Pasta, on detailing everything that is the NFL draft over the last couple of days. But we're all about the Golden State. Thank you very much. We're all about the Golden State Warriors for the next 3 hours. You know the drill. Hit us up. Let's get into this. Let's go. You want to talk about Jimmy Butler? Still a game time decision as to whether or not he'll be available. Jonathan Kuminga talk. I'm here for you. JK, was he disappointing? Was that rust? Do you have to rely on him in terms of getting some sort of offense? What about Steph? What about the referees? A lot of chirping on the part of the Golden State Warriors at the holding. And we know it's going to get physical, but what it is that Steph is doing when the ball off the ball and when he's not having the ball in his hands is getting a bit excessive. Draymond Green, you knew this was going to happen. He's already created a back and forth with just about everybody in a Houston Rocket uniform. This is what the postseason is all about. Now, I do want to start there when we talk about the physicality, because we knew going into this, we talked about this last week, that this was going to be a series where tempers were going to flare. It gets physical in the second season regardless. It could be the Celtics, Magic, Lakers, T-Wolves, Pacers, Bucks. Does not matter. Everybody ramps it up to another level. But when it came to Houston and the Warriors, and when you thought about the characters involved, namely one Dylan Brooks, Alperen Sengun, their head coach, Ime Udoka, who sort of creates and cultivates that sort of culture about being physical. And then, of course, on the other side, well, all you need is Draymond Green. I think that when you talk about physical play and when you talk about ratcheting it up in the postseason, he is the poster child. And so going into this series, we knew there was going to be a lot of back and forth. We knew that there was going to be the Houston Rockets exerting their muscle, their strength, specifically with two players in Alperen Sengun and Steven Adams. You throw Dylan Brooks into that mix. Tari Eason is a guy that drew the first technical, by the way, as he threw that towel in the face of Pat Spencer. It is as advertised. But here is what you have to think about going forward. Now, should the Golden State Warriors be able to prevail, and let's say the Warriors do advance to the second round, let's say Houston, whoever it is that they take on, whether it's Minnesota or the Lakers. Minnesota, by the way, going up 2-1 now on the Lakers after their win at home last night. Now you have to think about what it is that you have left in the tank as you go forward and get into the semifinals and take on either the Lakers or the T-Wolves. How much is this taking away from you when you think about, well, the playoffs will last until early June? Joined now, of course, by my partner here, one Evan Giddings in the house. Evan, by the way, doing a game last night, so completely understandable. Who'd you have to call last night? Was it Santa Clara?
Yeah, Santa Clara. Also same today, same tomorrow. But, it's like Jimmy Butler. Will he go? Will he show? It's kind of a game time decision,
Yeah, so here's where I was warming the crowd up with. I felt like, before some of those sitcoms like Seinfeld, they have the guy who goes out there and warms up the crowd before the show actually starts. That was my role here over the last 5 minutes. So well, I just feel as though, and we can get into Jimmy Butler certainly, but the toll that this is taking physically on the Warriors as well as Houston, but let's just keep this with the Warriors.
Yeah.
The physical toll that it's taking when you think about this series, which I don't think it's going any shorter than 6, potentially 7 games, that yes, should they get through Houston and move on to take on, whether it's Minnesota or the Lakers, you just wonder how much this is taken out of them and what is it that they have left physically, because we're only scratching the surface when you think about the playoffs and you have the semis, the Western Conference, and the NBA Finals all in front of you.
Yeah, that's what struck me the most. I went back and I think the part that if anybody wants to watch this game that's worth really taking a look at is the first 8 minutes of the game. Really the first 10, right before Jimmy Butler goes down. You saw a different level of physicality, of defensive focus and more importantly, execution by the Houston Rockets. And I think that's what, at least I expected them to do in game 2 after, I'm going to be honest, Dan, game 1, they look kind of soft. I mean, and maybe it was just first game jitters. Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün's first playoff game, though Şengün did play really well. That team as a whole hasn't been there together yet in those kind of tight, big game contests. Because also, think about it, they hadn't really had to play a game of importance just down the stretch of the season. I mean, they had the 2 seed locked up for the most part, and they were watching Denver, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Warriors, Memphis. They were all eating each other between the 3rd and the 8th seed in the Western Conference. So they're looking from a top. Yes, they had no chance to catch OKC, but that first game, it was like, all right, woo. All right, we're back to playing meaningful basketball. Meanwhile, to your point, what scares me more about the Warriors and I guess the war of attrition that they're kind of fighting is that they've been doing this dance for 2 months. In their own words, they've been playing basketball, playoff basketball for 2 months, really since Jimmy Butler got here, because they had to just to get in this position. So it isn't just, well, will they wear down in the series against Houston, or what will they have left in the second round? It's like they've already been taxed to get to this point, in addition to running up against a very talented Rockets squad. So that's one of the reasons I'm also with you. I thought it was going to go 6. I still have the Warriors in 6. I think even if Jimmy Butler's hurt, they can get one of these next 2 games. But it's absolutely a challenge. And I think people after game 1 just kind of overlooked Houston.
Yeah, I think that's an astute analysis, because when you think about game 1, maybe Houston wasn't ready to play. They weren't as physical. I'd stop short of calling them soft, but soft certainly is.
Compared to what we saw from them like the 2 Sundays prior.
And then I think that description was then, you could apply that to the Warriors in game 2. That the Warriors were also, I don't know if they were necessarily soft, but not as physical. And that's because I think the wake-up call clearly was for Houston after they lost game 1, that there was an asterisk next to game 2. Like, let's get after this. Like, what the hell are we doing? Let's go. And then the Warriors, it was a perfect example how you have to bring it every single night. Every single game, you have to feel as though your backs are against the wall, your hair's on fire. If there's any room, if you're not at optimal level, you will get beat in the postseason. So now that Houston, maybe to your point, wasn't necessarily completely focused and ready to play in game 1, they were in game 2, and maybe the Warriors also, after getting game 1, were a bit slightly complacent. Well, now it's on. Now it's game 3. Both teams are awake. As they like to say, something has to give, which is why tonight is so much fun. And let's not waste any more time and get into Butler. I think it boils down to this. You're going to have to win a game, maybe 2, without Butler. Now, I don't necessarily believe in a lot of what it is that I've read that it can happen. I think the Warriors can beat Houston without Jimmy Butler. I don't think you can win the series without Butler. I think you can get a game. Getting 2 games might be stretching it, but I think that's plausible as well. If he doesn't play tonight, the Warriors can win this game. Your thoughts on Butler and if he's not available tonight in game 3?
I don't think it's a death sentence. I think one of the reasons why, I actually think if Jimmy Butler hadn't gotten hurt, it might be strong, but I think they still lose game 2. Houston played desperate. And maybe that's the word I was looking for instead of soft. They didn't play with any desperation in game 1. The Warriors were the desperate team because they came in to acquire 1 goal, and that was to steal one of those 2 games, and they got it done. Now in game 3, one of the reasons that I think the Warriors have a good shot to win, in spite of Butler's availability, and as of right now, he's officially questionable with the pelvis contusion, according to the Golden State Warriors. Steve Kerr said he's relatively optimistic yesterday that he's going to play, but in all probability is a game-time decision. You're at home for the next 2 games. If there was a time to miss one of your 2 best players, this would be the time. You've already gotten a gauge of how physical this series is going to be. You've already got the Jalen Green 40 burger out of the way, essentially. I don't see him doing that again. And you also now had 2 days to prepare for a potential scenario where you don't have Jimmy Butler. To me, that's best case scenario. So the Warriors, might they not win tonight if Butler's not there? Sure. But I think that they absolutely have the ability to get 2 or one of these next 2, because also they've beaten this Houston team without Jimmy Butler. I realize it's the regular season. Teams were in different places. But the Warriors can go back and say, dude, we took care of you guys when we didn't even have our best squad. In fact, they won one game against Houston when Steph Curry and Draymond Green didn't even play on their home floor. So to me...
Jonathan Kuminga, 33 points.
Yeah, someone's going to have to get 30. I mean, whether it's Steph, whether it's, Chavano, whether it's Pods, someone's going to have to get 30 tonight. But I don't rule it out of the possibility because the Warriors have done it before.
Yeah, I think Steph's got to be Steph tonight.
100%.
And that's, we should start right there because you got to free him up a little bit. Now, I don't know what it is that you can do. Because I also know that there's a lot of people out there that believe that Steph is not getting the benefit of the call. There's certainly truth to that, but now listen, if he's fouled on a 3, you need to call that. And he was, clearly, in my estimation, on numerous shots against Houston in the last game. That's an oversight on the part of the referees. Like, there's letting him play, but you can't miss calls. The grabbing, when he's running baseline and he's coming off of pin downs or he's trying to free up on the angle or he's that perpetual motion Steph Curry, and when he's doing that and going through the washing machine, as they like to say, if he's taking an elbow in the gut, if he's getting grabbed by the jersey, I'm sorry, that's kind of what playoff basketball is all about. I don't think that you can start calling that. I just think that that's something you just got to deal with. It's annoying as hell. So what is it that you do to free up Steph? Do you have to set more screens? Is there somebody specifically, whether that's GP, that's got to set the hard screen? How do you free him up? But in terms of the grabbing and the tugging, I just think that's... Listen, the blatant foul calls on his shot when he's going to the rim and or shooting a 3, blow the whistle. But the other stuff, to me, at least in my upbringing, that's just sort of what happens when the game gets ratcheted up to this level when you talk about the postseason. Yeah, Steph has got to be Steph.
No, sorry about that, Dan. He absolutely does. But I think that the 1-3 where VanVleet was like tugging on his jersey, he made it anyways. That was the one where he kind of like literally visibly tugged at his jersey to tell the ref that I was getting held. I'm with you. The off-ball stuff, it happens in every other game too. It just does. People grab, they pull, they tug, they hit. The referees can't call everything off the ball. And I know that to me, it's more... I don't think it's any more drastic, but it is more aesthetically visible because Curry's oftentimes getting guarded by a guy that is 4 or 5 inches taller than him, that has a foot longer wingspan, and that literally looks like he's just consuming him at all times. No other player in the league gets guarded like that. And so I do think that it's our awareness of how Steph off the ball is being handled, so to speak, it's more heightened. But Steph has been dealing with this his whole career. And I'm sorry, if they haven't called it for the first 15 years of his career, I don't expect them to start calling it all of a sudden in year 16. The one thing that Steph has to be able to do or willing to do tonight, which I saw him and I thought was the key in game 1, he has to be willing to take the punishment inside the paint. He has to be willing to get downhill. And there was less of that in game 2. The Rockets are overplaying everything. I don't think it's a coincidence that the two most, actually really just the one most impactful player off the bench for the Warriors, there were 2 post, but Pat Spencer, dude, he just went to the rim as soon as he got into the game. And I know the Rockets are probably not expecting at one point this year a G League player to go out there and try and take it to him, but that is what Steph has to do. He started the first game 0 for 3. He made his next 5 shots. All of them were within the 3-point line. And that is when everything opened up beyond the perimeter. Steph, at the very beginning of this game, has to be willing to go into the trees, to take the punishment, and to score from within the 3-point line, something that he doesn't always do, or perhaps at age 37, sometimes isn't able to do. Tonight, with 2 days of rest, with Jimmy Butler, even if he plays less than 100%, Steph has to be Steph, but he has to be 2-point Steph. And the greatest 3-point shooter of all time has got to be willing to take the punishment in the paint.
If I'm Steve Kerr knows this better than anybody, right? He grew up going through the wars with the Chicago Bulls back in the day. He's not about to complain of the off-the-ball stuff. He understands it.
He himself did it. I mean, he played against John Stockton. Like, Stockton played off ball and would set screens and get drilled all the time.
And he saw his teammate Michael Jordan, especially before Jordan got into the weight room, what it is that the Detroit Pistons did to him. But what I would do, and I'm sure Steve Kerr will because he's a smart coach, is that you blow in the ear of, who's got the game today, Bill Kennedy or Rodney Mott, the referees for the NBA playoffs or for tonight's game potentially. And you just say, hey, listen, just be aware of it. And, Rodney Mott, Bill Kennedy, what I need you to do is just at least put the threat out there, because what happens in an NBA game, there's that ongoing conversation. It's very similar to that of a boxing referee. Like a referee in a boxing match, if it's a title fight, he may not take points away from you, but what he'll say during the fight, he'll say, Mayweather, watch the low blows, keep the hands up. No rabbit punches, got to keep your hands up. I'm going to take points away. And so if I'm a referee in tonight's game, I'm Bill Kennedy, I tell Dylan Brooks, hey, I see that, knock it off. I'll blow the whistle. You got to keep your hands to yourself. I'm watching it. You got to let the players know without blowing the whistle that I'm aware of what's going on. You got to let Steph come through. You don't have to disrupt the game. But there has to be some of that, and I think it starts with Steve Kerr.
888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings, Dan DeVoe, and Warriors this week. What are you expecting to see in Game 3? Jimmy Butler, questionable. If he can go, what percentage is he? How does that impact this game? If he can't go, can the Warriors win Game 3 on their home floor? Do they need to? Do they have to get one of the next two? How are you looking at this game after what you saw in Game 2 with Butler going down? Podziemski ill, not on the injury report tonight. That's good news. How are we feeling about the series right now as it stands at tied at 1 between the Warriors and the Rockets? Let's go down to the South Bay, talk to Oscar. Oscar, what's going on? Welcome to the program. Good morning.
Gentlemen, I'm trying to keep things fair here. The Warriors, they do a lot of complaining, and I don't know where it came from. You're a championship ball club. You really can't manipulate the officials as much as Draymond does. And no one really gets as many calls as Steph, because he usually kicks his legs out and he falls. He's too small. He's going to hurt his wrist. He's going to hurt his coccyx. It's just not worth it. Stay on your feet, shoot your jumper, and get back down court. Stop the whining. Play the game of basketball, and you'll be okay.
Wow, Oscar. Coming in hot early. First call of the day.
I don't hear any Warriors complaining.
Well, I don't think that they complain any more than other teams.
I think it's more like us and people that watch these games.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the Warriors fans that want more whistles for Steph, or believe the Rockets are being too tough. I didn't hear any Warriors players complaining about calls after Game 2.
Neither did I.
Or the first game, to be honest. And that is when you know that things will get a little ridiculous. It's when you hear Steve Kerr go to the podium and the first thing he says, because actually there was a game that the Warriors lost 91-90. It was the semifinals of the Emirates play-in, or mid-season tournament, whatever the hell they call that thing.
The Emirates Cup.
Yeah. And there was a missed call at the end of the game. I think it was on, I don't know, it was on Kuminga. He was going for the ball, and I think he wrapped up a Rockets player that went down, shot free throws, they lost. Steve Kerr, the first thing he did was BS. Like, that was a bad call. You cannot make that call at that point in the game in that situation. There hasn't been any of that energy through the first 2 games of this playoff.
No, it's going to be physical. And the Warriors are, Oscar, I hear you, but I don't know that any of the Warriors are complaining. And again, a lot of this is you follow the lead of your head coach. And Steve Kerr, he stopped short of singling out referees or saying that was a bad officiated game. First of all, you can't because you get a fine. But he's not making any excuses. This is the way, and I, quite frankly, I like it. Maybe not to the extent of what it is that we saw with Jimmy Butler, what we saw with John Morant, but that's just a result of players who are being much more hands-on, that every possession counts, that I'm blocking out, I'm crashing the boards, and things like what it is that we saw with John Morant as well as Jimmy Butler are going to happen. It's unfortunate. I don't think it was a dirty play. I haven't been here this week, but I'm not sure what it is that the fan base has been saying. 95% of the game.
They did not like it. A lot of people thought it was dirty. I personally didn't. I also didn't think the Lou Dort play was dirty, but
no. But I think I get it. Listen, you're fans. There's nothing wrong. Look, that's understandable.
It sucks.
Yeah, right. And if you want to point a finger at Amen Thompson, go right ahead, man. It's your right as a fan to do. Who the hell cares? But I think the way I see this is that this is what happens when things get so physical. If this is a regular season game, I don't think you're seeing Adams pushing Draymond, who's pushing Amen Thompson. There's not that much physicality. You don't have that many guys crashing. Granted, those are physical players. But if this is a regular season game, guess what? Butler's snaring that rebound and you're going the other way. But because every possession counts, because as you laid out, that before the game, Houston recognized this is a must win. They came out, knives out, fangs out, that they had to win this, and they're going after every loose ball. This is what happens. This is what happens when Lou Dort is running down what should be an uncontested hoop. You put yourself in an awkward position. It's because the intensity gets ratcheted up to a level that you don't see during the regular season. I don't think you can point a finger at Amen Thompson. Certainly, he doesn't have the reputation of doing that. And anybody who's watching the replay of that tape, I don't know how you arrive at that conclusion. But again, if that's how you feel, do you. I'm not here to say one way or the other. I just think that this is going to be playoff basketball going forward. And there's no room for whiners at this point. Buckle up. I think the bigger question becomes is what do you have left in the tank if you're to take on Minnesota and that Minnesota series ends in 5 games?
Well, I don't think that series is necessarily over, but could be wrong. I 100% agree with the
Clippers series is over.
That I also don't think is over. I could be wrong.
You're wrong.
From the 510, the Boxer and Gerson work injury attorneys text line. When does Curry complain on light fouls? He does the complete opposite. I agree. Curry has the right to complain about so much that he doesn't. It's one of the reasons why I love watching him play, because I don't have to watch him like Luka Doncic whine about every single call. I don't have to look at him, even like an SGA sometimes, who's seeking contact and trying to get every call. I don't have to. I'm going to go after your guy, Jalen Brunson. Like, just be better.
Yeah, he's probably now taken over the lead. I think he's supplanted Luka Doncic and becoming the most annoying flop, the most annoying grifter in the NBA right now.
Could you imagine if they both had stayed in Dallas? Like how unbelievably
4 hours to play a game of those two
unentertaining that would be. Oh my goodness. We have to watch these guys just seek contact for the entire game. Though I think Curry tries to, heighten the referees sometimes to, or sort of I don't know, show the contact that he's taken. I don't think he's somebody that complains unless it's absolutely egregious. All right, let's go to the real Oscar in Stockton.
Double O's to start the show.
209. What's up, O?
Hey, look, I couldn't sleep. I've been waiting for this game. And I heard this cat call the other day, Oscar from Fresno. The real Oscar, please stand up. That's me. I'm going to check this out. He called about Steph Curry crying and kicking. Man, he way in Fresno. That's why. He must not be watching the same TV we watching. My thing is with the Warriors. The Warriors take care of business. And Steph Curry, he talks to the referees like a lawyer. He don't never complain like that. I mean, I heard people say Steph be complaining and the Warriors complain. When have the Warriors complained? Draymond didn't complain. Curry didn't complain, or Steve Kerr. They had nothing about this is playoff basketball. So everybody talking about ain't nobody complaining. And even when Jimmy Butler got hurt, you didn't hear Jimmy Butler say it was a dirty play. Draymond didn't say it was a dirty play, and I didn't say it was a dirty play because it wasn't a dirty play. It happens like that sometimes. I'm talking about Teletennik playing basketball. He did not. I know times he did not do that. So for everybody calling about the Warriors is soft, how are we soft if we won 4 titles already? How are we soft if we don't complain? So everybody buckle up. Houston got a problem. And Oscar in Fresno, you're going to change your name, brother, because you can't call the 95.7 the game complaining about the Warriors.
Hey, Oscar,
Warriors,
hang on there for a second.
Yeah.
So I'm recognizing some Central Valley rivalry here, the 209. So I know you're hanging in the CV. Where are you? Where are you living right now?
I live in Stockton, California, man.
All right.
About 50
Yes,
minutes
sir.
from Oakland. You know what I'm saying? He lives in Fresno, and my son will be out there next week in Fresno State for the league meet in the 400. He's gonna wear him out. Fresno can't. Man, come on, man.
I can recognize that Fresno hate from anywhere.
Love it, Oscar.
Oscar, way to get us going, brother.
Good luck to your son, by the way. Appreciate the call. Oh man. Dude, but that's the kind of energy that the playoffs is all about. I will also say this. The series, I believe, has been reset a little bit from the standpoint of the Warriors forced the Rockets to play like with their fangs out in game 2. Yeah, I don't know tonight who is more desperate. A lot of it does depend on Jimmy Butler's injury, but the fact remains that neither team has to get this game. Game 2 was a must-win for Houston. Game 3 is not a must-win for either team. So I'm very curious to see how both of these sides come out, how they play in the immediate. 888-957-9570 is the number if you want to get on the conversation. Also the number for the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, Warriors this week. We'll be back after this on 95.7 The Game.
Greetings, Boomtown. Ever since this neighborhood switched to Xfinity Internet,
The Wi-Fi is booming!
Xfinity combines the power of internet and mobile.
road pinstripe gray jerseys. This one is hit well towards the opposite field. And that ball is gone. Andrew Raymond takes it the other way. And a solo strike starts the Santa Clara fifth.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
What's with the cowbells?
You got to turn your mic on.
What's with the cowbells? That's like Oakland A's.
They gave away the cowbells on Friday nights. That was from the Santa Clara game I was doing last night. God damn it, Pasta.
That's a good call.
Thanks, man.
Good call.
That I did not know that. You guys are ridiculous. This is a basketball show. Save that for the summer. All right.
You know what I liked about that? Because I got to break down anytime I hear play-by-play. So
okay.
I think that caught you off guard because he won Oppo. And you raised to the level of like, oh, that's got a shot. That's God. Perfect. Don't oversell it. Don't get out of your skin. Just sort of stayed within the context of what I could hear right there. They were just having a conversation. All of a sudden, this guy went Oppo?
Well, he hit it 109 off the bat, so it was like a wall scraper. Like you didn't know whether or not it was going to get out.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, those are kind of tough. It's kind of like I'm fascinated. I mean, like Fitz and Tim Roy is going to be on the call tonight at 5:30 right here on 95.7 The Game. They've seen Steph take so many, ridiculous threes, but Tim Roy had a call in game one of Curry's, the fadeaway from the corner, or somehow, some way, he doesn't know there's like a millimeter between his heel and the out of bounds marker, throws it up into the heavens and it comes down, and he aptly describes it as a miraculous shot on Easter. And It was just a great in-the-moment call, and I'm thinking, how the hell, like, did you have that in your bag just in case Steph did something crazy? Because anytime a shot goes up from Curry, you have to assume it's going to go in.
Who had the game? Was it B.A. Brian Anderson, or was it your guy that had the game on? Was it Harlan that had game one?
I think Harlan
did have game one.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because it was the geometrically should not have happened.
That's the call, yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that was, and I don't know if that was in his bag, but that was well done. And that was one of those where Steph had a couple where he beat the buzzer, and that sidestep three, that one was the most miraculous. But
well, and that's one of the reasons why, if I was Houston, you try and put both hats on. If I'm Houston after game one, I don't think that I was feeling as bad. And look, fans are confident. You steal game one, but if I'm Houston, I was talking to my cousin. He's from the Woodlands. He lives down south. He's a big Rockets fan, and he was like despondent.
Wait, how do we? So from the Woodlands down south, how does that relate to Houston, Texas?
The Woodlands is a suburb of the Houston area.
Oh, I thought Woodlands in the Bay. Okay, sorry.
No. The Woodlands, Texas it's literally a city. And in fact, I think Fitzgerald actually he shot that from the Woodlands in game one. It might have been that one in the fourth quarter he hit over Amin Thompson, where Amin just like throws his hands up and says, what the hell am I supposed to do?
Is NASA in Houston? It is, right?
NASA?
Yeah. Isn't that why they're the Rockets? Anyways, look that up, Post.
I think so.
Sure.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Sure, NASA's in here. I honestly don't know. Although I have been to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. That one's awesome.
Oh, okay. Well, they also have some sort of a museum in Houston, I want to say, that I've been to. It's a long time ago. Go ahead.
I'm with you. I'm sure our YouTube chat will agree. By the way, Jimbo on our YouTube chat, feeling nervous tonight. I understand that, but that's to get back to my point. If I was Houston, I wouldn't have been feeling nervous after game one because Curry hit some unbelievable shots. You still held them to 95 points. And in game two, if you get a slightly better offensive performance like they did, granted Butler got hurt, I still think they would have won the game. Now the question is, can they do it again? I never felt like Houston couldn't get a 30 burger from Green or a 20 and nearly 20 game from Şengün. But can you do it 4 times out of 7? That's what the playoffs is all about. It's not about one game or how you look night to night. It's about, can you repeat yourself over 2 weeks of eventually condensed basketball when these games get to every other night? And is that going to be good enough to beat your opponent? I personally don't believe that Houston can replicate what they did in game 2 3 more times. And that's why I believe the Warriors are eventually going to win this series.
Let's just do this under the assumption that Jimmy Butler's not available tonight, because I don't think he's going to play. May not play on Monday.
I think you have to assume he's not.
Yeah. So we're under the assumption that he's not playing tonight. We'll just keep it for tonight and wait to see what happens on Monday. The Warriors still can win the game. I strongly believe the Warriors can beat the Houston Rockets. And I think Steve Kerr knows that as well. The question becomes, and stop me if you've heard this before,
Okay.
who can score the basketball not named Steph Curry? And it's an age-old question. We've been dealing with this going on 4 or 5 years now. Ever since the decline of Klay Thompson, or Thompson wasn't as consistent. Who, by the way, kind of the forgotten component of all of this. Now that Dallas is out, Klay Thompson watching the Warriors in the playoffs, making a playoff run.
He was actually he was on Instagram Live. Was it last night or 2 nights ago? He was on his boat, and I don't know if he was in some lagoon in Texas, or if he was back in the Bay Area in what is now, I guess, his off-season home in Sausalito. But he was just out there having a great time. Like, I actually don't think that Klay Thompson gives a rip.
I think he does. Just from what I can tell, the guy's a little overly sensitive. And I think if you do something like that, it's almost like Shedeur Sanders tweeting out last night a quote, some biblical reference. I think that it hurts. Otherwise, you don't say anything. To me, people that are really comfortable in their own skin don't need to say, hey, look at me, I'm on a boat, I don't really care. That's just telling everybody that you do care. That is, by the way.
Oh, get off our guy, all right?
That, by the way, just really quick, because Nico Harrison did a press conference. By the way, Nico, I'm with Charles Barkley. Don't do press conferences anymore. But can we just move on from Nico Harrison? Like,
were recording devices allowed?
It's getting to the point where it's just like, enough. I heard it on more podcasts. I get it. He orchestrated the worst trade potentially in the history of sports, but we just love to hate on people now. Like, I think the grace period, a month, 2 months, it's like, all right, Nico he's a coconut, but it's beginning to be more of a reflection on you and your inadequacies if you continue to hate on this guy on a daily basis. Yes, move on. It was a mistake. If you're Dallas, you live in Dallas, I get it. He'll go down in infamy. But for the rest of us that aren't in, what do they call it? The triplex, wherever that,
Metroplex.
Metroplex. I'm not into Dallas.
First of all, Babe Ruth is the worst trade in the history of sports. But I do think
they're saying that that's right up there with it.
We don't know that yet. I mean, Luka could never win a title or snap his knee next year. Knock on wood.
Are you familiar with Bye Bye Babette?
No. Enlighten me.
So that's the name of the play that the Boston Red Sox owner needed to get funded. And that's the reason why he traded. I might be screwing up the name. So that's part of the reason why he traded.
I feel like Pasta would know this. Pasta, do you know this story?
Yes, and the play ended up tanking.
Yeah, but he got cash to fund this play, which is the reason.
He needed cast members for the play, and he traded Babe Ruth for money, and then the show tanked.
Fossey, you're amazing. I want to kiss you on that forehead. He's 14 years old, and he knows more stuff about me and knows more stuff about baseball going back to the days of Babe Ruth.
No, he just turned 16. It was last week.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I'll buy you a first beer in a couple of years.
That's what you said last week. I'm just kidding.
I still got to buy you a beer. All right.
So it gets back to, again, who scores the basketball, not named Steph. Because if you're Houston, we saw it when Butler went out. They're just like, that's Steph. Everybody go get him. And when I say everybody, I mean just about everybody. There were like 3 guys that were addressing him across the timeline. And it's going to be that way tonight.
See, I mean,
it's that way even with Butler. But now without Butler, again, we've been dealing with this for a while. So the Warriors know this. We know this. Maybe you share that wealth. Maybe it's a little bit of Moody. It's a little bit. I want to get into Moody, by the way. Maybe it's a little bit of Podziemski. Hopefully he's healthy.
I'm less concerned about what
I don't want to mention JK, but I will.
No. Actually, I think, of course, we spent like 5 months talking about him every single day. Today's actually the day we should be talking about him if Jimmy Butler's not going to play. But we'll table that for a moment because I actually have more concern about how they're going to defend the Rockets because Butler is a second safety with Draymond. And I just think his smarts out there make it so the Houston Rockets can't just hunt. Like, without Butler, you're going to have to play more post. You're going to have to play more Hield potentially. You're going to have to play more Kuminga. All 3 of those play. And Kuminga's not a horrible on-ball defender, but he's not a great help defender. He's not a heady defender. And that's what has made the Warriors defense, I think, as good to the point where they've been number 1 in defensive rating since Butler has gotten here. Without him, you saw Jalen Green or Şengün just put post and pick and roll, put Kevon Looney in pick and roll, put at times Kuminga in pick and roll. They are going to hunt every single mismatch on that floor. And Jimmy Butler, at the very least, makes it so he can come over and take pressure off of guys. He can double at right times. I think a big reason why Jalen Green got 38 points in that basketball game was because Jimmy Butler was not there. So I hear you about scoring, and I get it, but I don't think it's a coincidence they went from 85 to 109 points after, game 1 to game 2.
Oh, they've been the best defense since Butler arrived. Their offense doesn't scare me. I get it. Jalen Green went off, and yes, everything you said is true, but
like if they score close to 110 points, I don't care if Butler's in or not. The Warriors are going to be hard-pressed to win those games.
Well, they're not going to get 110 points if you take care of the basketball. Like, again, that team in a half-court set struggles, and this is statistically supported. Jalen Green went off, but he hasn't been consistent, not only throughout this season, but throughout his career. So maybe he has another 38, 35 points in his bag. He certainly has the talent to do it, but he hasn't been consistent. And then once you get past Jalen Green, it's a bunch of athletes that don't necessarily scare me or shouldn't scare anybody offensively, because that's really where they've struggled. Where they're good at is that, and the Warriors, they started to turn the ball over in the second half of that basketball game, and you can't do that in any game, but you specifically and especially can't do that against the Houston Rockets.
No, especially
because that nullifies the one advantage you have, that they're not good in a half-court set. But if you put them in motion on live ball turnovers, then that throws all of that out the door.
Yeah, I totally agree, because you have to assume you're not going to beat them on the glass. You might not even beat them sometimes at the free throw line. But the one thing you can control and have control over is possession. How careful are you with the basketball? And that's where I'm with you, on offense. It isn't necessarily generating points. I guess the two are sort of intertwined. They're connected. How many shots on goal can you get? How many times can you not give the ball in extra possessions to the other team? Like, Houston should take by far and away the most shots in this series, because they're going to get second chance opportunities. They're going to get offensive rebounds, and they're going to take a lot of shots. But how many possessions can you maximize? And that's where Butler has been a freaking godsend. And you're right, it was night and day different. The Warriors went from looking like a team that was on a 65-win pace from game 1 with Jimmy Butler in a small condensed sample size, to the team before Butler, who was a game below 500 and could not figure out how to win consecutive games after they started 12-3. It was a team that struggled to find any semblance of a defensive idea. That's actually the biggest thing that jumps out to me. They look like a team without an identity. They're back to a team that doesn't know what their roles are. And that's where the glue of Jimmy has been so massive on both ends of the floor. So, we're splitting hairs a little bit. I think it's more on defense. You think it's more on offense. But the fact remains, he has his fingerprints all over everything that the Warriors do. And so the question that I would like to throw out at 888-957-9570 is, who needs to step up for Jimmy Butler? Who needs to, and I don't know if it's necessarily the X factor. The 510 is saying the X factor tonight, if Butler doesn't play, is how Draymond plays. He needs to be excellent. Who needs to step up and play better in game 3 if Jimmy's not available?
One thing to keep an eye on tonight, they're going to blitz Steph Curry. All right? That's one thing there's not a lot of things I can guarantee in life. If Jimmy Butler's not available, book it. They're going to send 3 guys at Steph. Here's what you really have to keep an eye on tonight. And hopefully somebody blew into Steph's ear. They watched tape extensively yesterday, and Steph knows this. But the hard thing about Steph is, because he has such a remarkable handle, he's going to try and break that pressure sometimes. And he wants to dribble through that because he can. We saw that lead to a couple of turnovers. That's just difficult to do. It's 3 guys. Steph wants to break that pressure and then get rid of the basketball. Listen, I don't want to sound like Joe Coach here, but I hope Steve Kerr is telling him, the minute you recognize that pressure, get rid of the basketball. Because if you get that to GP out in front at the top, now it's almost like you're 4-on-1. Now it's like a 3-on-2 break. If you make Houston pay, if you get the ball out of Steph's hands and take take advantage of that man advantage that they're going to have, and you make Houston pay, and you're scoring off of that, whether you're throwing to Draymond on the dunker spot or you're taking advantage of that 1 or 2 man advantage, it's almost like equivalent to being in a consistent power play in hockey. If you make Houston think about that, they'll back off. They'll call off the dogs. You won't see the double or triple team, but they're going to do it until proven otherwise. So Steph, the minute he recognizes that, step back, get rid of the basketball, and go to work. Take advantage of that. Do not try and break that pressure with the handle, because once you turn it over, then it's compounding things. Then it's not only are we nullifying Steph, but once again, it's getting us out and letting us run and doing what it is that we do best with all of these wings.
Well, that's why, again, if you go back and watch the beginning of Game 2, I think that there was trouble on the horizon before Jimmy Butler even got hurt. And one of the reasons is Steph was really loose with the ball. He ended up with 6 turnovers. Draymond had 5. But very first possession, Steph comes down and tries throwing one of his patented hook passes, throws it into the first row over Podziemski. And it's like, that's what we're doing tonight, you know? Even with Butler in the game. So, yes, I agree with you that Curry has to get the ball out of his hands, but the issue is that because Houston is going to send 2 probably bigger players at him, he himself has to be really careful. Like, I understand that other players and teammates need to make plays, but Steph has got to be better with the basketball. And in fact, I know that he's incendiary. He could score 20 in a quarter. But the one thing that I need from Steph Curry tonight is fewer than 4 turnovers. I need him to be the guy that is rock solid with the ball, because if he's not, I know that he can pop off and he can score a lot of points and he's going to get you baskets at will. But without Jimmy Butler, they need Steph to be the point guard, not the shooting guard tonight. That's how I think they can win.
Let's get to some calls. And
right.
I want to continue with the turnovers. And not only Steph, but I also want to bring Draymond into the equation as well.
That's a good point. All right, let's go down to San Diego. Talk to our guy, Coach Hall. What up, Coach? Good morning.
Hey, what's up, fellas? Happy Saturday.
Back at you.
Yeah, for me personally, I think Draymond is the X factor. If you go back to the finals, he's been borderline unplayable since then. If he's not even going to look at the basket or make point-blank layups, we're at a 4-on-5 disadvantage every time. Him trying to thread the needle and force passes in, I think, personally, he's the most important player, and he sets the tone. You cannot start the game off with back-to-back turnovers because it's like it's contagious at that point. So I just think he needs to put the pressure on the defense. I don't even care if he misses. Just attack the basket. The law averages some is going to go in, man. Just look at the basket, put us in a good spot, and I think we'll be all right.
I got you, Coach. I kind of agree. Like, I think that I don't know if it's taking a ton of threes, but Draymond has to make, because he's doing it he has to make Şengün work a little bit. Like, Şengün is not a great interior defender. And I think the Rockets played less with Steven Adams in Game 2 than they did Game 1. That means that, again, the place where the Warriors have to do their damage is in the paint. And Draymond's got to be a part of that. I agree.
And, also has to be a part of that is Moses Moody. Moody has to go back to the guy he was. Remember, just before the Jimmy Butler trade, and especially after the Jimmy Butler trade, the confidence he had in shooting the ball. He was becoming a scorer. He was becoming the guy that Steve Kerr was trying to bring out. Like, don't be deferential. We like your jump shot. You can shoot a 3. You can get to the rim. Be confident. It's year 4. Go get it. Attack the rim. Be a two-way player. And he was blossoming into that player, I think, for a good 2-month stretch. Went into a bit of a funk. And right now, while he still helps you out defensively and you need his length and you need what it is that he can do on the defensive end, but offensively, this is a perfect example of a young player that I look at that the stage and the lights are a little bit too bright for him. And I just see this guy as he's not the same player, and immediately he's looking to give it up to either Butler or to Draymond or to an adult in the room. He has got to get after it. He has the ability. It's just about confidence at this point. For the majority of young players, there's a reason why you're getting run. And this is true for everybody in the NBA. It's because you have the ability to do it. Now, when you get to the second season, it just becomes about what's between your ears. Do you have the confidence to go out and shoot your shot and get yours? You have the ability. Do you have the confidence? That's what you need from someone like that of Moses Moody, who I think is much better equipped to give you points offensively than that of a Draymond Green.
Well, the thing that I find interesting about that is Moody, he looked tentative in game one. And to start game two, he actually looked really aggressive. It's almost like he carried that confidence from making his last two shots. They were big shots. In the fourth quarter, under 5 minutes, he hit that fading two in the end of the shot clock, and then he hit the three from the corner, which essentially put the game away. In game two, he came out and he hit his first shot. It was a tough one. It was like a transition three, rattled it in left side, and then it was just kind of nothing. Like he just floated for the rest of the game. So I find it interesting when and where Moody picks his spots to be aggressive. I'm with you. I do think, I don't know if it's for him to put on a scoring hat, but he has to be willing to shoot the ball more. And for him to take 3, maybe 4 threes, if Butler's not playing and they're looking for extra, and that means that they're going to try and take Curry out of this, the Warriors are going to have to rely on someone like Moses to knock down threes, because Quentin Post took 9 in that game, in game two. He is not afraid. Post is someone that is now stepping in, found his shot, made his first postseason triple, and he's like, give me the rock. I want to see Moses Moody have the same kind of aggression for the three-point line, or even at the rim, because he has the ability to attack, play with the same kind of aggressiveness that Quentin Post has.
And we're sort of dancing around this, and maybe we'll do it in the next segment.
Yeah, I do want to get to it at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, Jonathan Kuminga, when we talk about offense and who's going to supply the offense, I think that there's a guy who's equipped to do it. We can talk about his performance in game 2, and if he does get run tonight, I think that's, once again, the guy who can narrow that gap between Steph and everybody, the field, if you will, of trying to find another guy who's going to give you big points tonight.
Well, let's sneak in a caller, especially because Brian in San Francisco wants to talk about something that I love. Brian, what's going on, man? You're on Warriors This Week. Brian, not Brian, it's pasta. Brian. You put Jimmy up. No.
I want to talk about how, hey guys, great to be on. I want to talk about how the guy who needs to step up is Buddy Hield. We know that Steph is going to get double, triple teamed, like you guys said. Buddy, number 7, the splash buddy, can be very streaky. We need him to play like he did that first, 5th of the season, first 10 games where we had a ton of hope. If he hits a ton of open shots, then we're in good shape. And also on the turnover point, the Warriors love that high-risk pass. And so you talk about preventing turnovers, but those high-risk passes turn into 2-3 points sometimes. So I just want to talk about that. But the man that needs to step up is number 7, the man from the Bahamas.
The man from the Bahamas.
Here we go.
Chavano. Thank you, Brian.
Here we go.
I mean, it's going to happen. He's going to win a game. Why not tonight? He's going to win a game in this playoff run for the Warriors. Why not tonight?
I'm over it.
I know you are.
I'm just over it. I don't think it could. God.
No.
So I don't think he's a good player. I mean, yes, he can give you some nights, but he's just like defensively. I look at it, I'm like, I don't understand it. I don't get it. And some of his decision making, it's just. And if he's not giving you threes, it's just. I'm sort of perplexed. But listen. It's Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr knows a hell of a lot more about what's going on with the Warriors than I do. So certainly defer to that man.
Yeah, the 5-0's with you. Buddy Hield needs some serious help to get his offense back. Look, but part of it is shtick. I do like ribbing you a little bit about our boy Chavano.
I'd love to see it.
So would I. Because every time he has a good game, I'll come in here and jab you. But it's been quite some time. I think that Buddy is a guy that he's actually. The Rockets are a tough matchup for him because the one thing they do really well is defend the 3-point line. I mean, they allow the fewest threes to be taken. He can't put the ball on the floor.
He's not going to get his shot off from this point forward, because the one thing about him is he has a hard time creating his own shot. Steph is the best at it in the history of the sport in terms of his sidestep, step back, his handle. He'll get his own three if 2 guys are in his face. Buddy has to have an eye on the front rim. He has to be open, and then it'll go in. He can't create his own shot. And guess what? As we have talked about all along, right now in the playoffs, there's no room. You're not getting that room. It's not November. It's not October. Teams are not letting you cast and taking your time to shoot that shot. They are in your face, and that's not going to stop. And so I don't know. I don't foresee how this guy can be a factor going forward.
All right, 888-957-9570 is the
Still
number.
the nicest guy in the world.
Oh, he is. I mean, he's also the Golden State whipping boy, it feels like, for just about everybody in this fan base. All right, on the other side, we're going to open it up. Who do you think needs to be the X factor? What do the Warriors need if Jimmy Butler cannot play tonight? Right now, he is questionable with a left pelvis contusion. Gary Payton II also popped up on the injury report, questionable with a right shoulder strain. And then Steph Curry with the right thumb is available tonight. That's the Warriors injury report for the Houston Rockets. They're completely clean. They're 100%. What do you want to see from the Warriors tonight in Game 3? 888-957-9570. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, Warriors This Week. Back after this.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
All right, Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, back in the center. Getting you set for Game 3 tonight, 5:30, 4:30 Warriors Live. Tim Roy has the call with Tom Tolbert at tip. All right here on 95.7 The Game. This is what it's all about. The Warriors with a chance to get the upper hand in the series. The Rockets trying to steal one on the road. Can they grab home court back? This is when it gets fun. It just is.
Kind of surprised with the FU Draymond chant broken out in Houston. Didn't foresee that coming.
I think that might be the most probable thing. I guess Houston doesn't have anything against Draymond, but he's right. And Steve Kerr was also right. I think talk about it after the game.
Draymond had a great line.
It's unoriginal.
Yeah, totally.
That's Boston's thing, man. Houston, you ain't
stronger than that.
You ain't that guy, pal. Like, that fan base is not hard enough. Is not. They don't care about the Rockets. Houston, God love Houston, Texas. It's actually my favorite city in Texas. Austin's up there.
Austin?
Austin's up there, but Austin's a little bit. They've been a late bloomer. Like, you went to Austin 10, 15 years ago, not what it is now. Although it's cool. Houston, I got family there. Got a lot of love for Houston. It's not a sports town. It's just not. Like, they like college basketball, college football, and everything professional is on the back burner. The Houston Texans, yeah, we like them when they're good. The Houston Rockets, we got some love for Olajuwon, and when they were winning championships in the 90s, they're solid squad. T-Mac, we got some guys there. They don't care enough to say F you, Draymond. You cannot put yourself in the category of a hardcore fan base like that.
Come stronger than that. Be original. It's like, but it's all those podunk cities. Sorry, Houston, but OKC is the same way. They're playing Edwin Diaz's trumpet throughout the entire game. I mean, come on. Belongs to the Mets. OKC, by the way, when you see them sitting there, it reminds me of those games back in the days of the Iron Curtain in communist Russia, where everybody's in those blue shirts. Like, you've seen videos of that where everybody's everybody's sitting. It's almost like it's militant. Don't stand. Everybody's sitting in the same position, all wearing the exact same shirt. And it's like where are we? OKC, Houston, give me some originality.
Well, I will give OKC some credit. That's a raucous environment, because I think that the Thunder fans legitimately care about that
Sonics,
team.
Man, come on.
Well, yeah, and Seattle's going to get another team somehow, some way, eventually.
Vegas will first, but
yeah. Well, hopefully they add two at a time, because I think the last thing you'd want is an odd amount of teams. Although I don't know which one would move into the other conference. Maybe you can finally put Memphis in the East the way it's supposed to be.
By the way, tonight, just in case Jimmy Butler's not available, and maybe Podziemski's not available, and Steve Kerr's looking down that bench like, my God, I'm running out of players. Who am I going to play? I do think that there's a strong chance that he can call on Shedeur Sanders tonight.
He's available. Oh, man. You know what, actually, real quick on an aside, I'm starting to feel bad for that kid.
I was saying possible before. I never thought I'd say I feel sorry for the Sanders, but
excuse me.
Seems like a good dude.
I don't know about that, but it's one of those things where, okay, like the joke and the fun is over. Can somebody please pick this kid? Like, he can't be this bad. He can't be worse than some of these quarterbacks that are getting picked ahead. I don't know. All right, get us back on track. Scott's in Berkeley. Let's go out to B-Town, Berkeley. Scotty, what's up?
Gentlemen, good morning. I think from the last sequence, from the last segment, you're right about Moody.
Hey, wait, Scott, can I cut you off, my man? From this point forward,
go ahead.
After that stick you had last week, can we just call you Panama Lewis, or can that be your handle from now on?
That was pretty good.
No.
Okay.
Hell no. Never. I will never be associated with a scuzzbag like that.
Whoa, I got you going. All right, brother, keep going.
Yeah, don't poke the bear, Dan.
Well, it's got to be, to me, it's got to be Moody, because we keep forgetting Moody and Kuminga were in the same class. And Moses has always been the adult. I think the problem I think I've developed with Kuminga is that when he comes in, regardless of whether you get good Jonathan or bad Jonathan, he's he's really the Bermuda Triangle. The ball sticks with him, and, it just kind of disrupts everything. Now, insofar as Kerr playing him or not playing him, I mean, Steve's been going through this since last summer in Paris with the Jason Tatum thing and Dave Portnoy's complaints about him not being in the rotation. I was kind of
sports shout out.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of like listening to that, and it's like, what? Derek White and Drew Holiday being in the rotation wasn't enough. It's I mean, if he can, I can, in a way, my mind is going, Jimmy's got to go. Jimmy's got to go tonight. I suspect he's going to try, and if he feels good, even though. Has this been the postseason of tailbone injuries or hip injuries? Because guys are getting up in the air and they're getting blasted and they're landing on that. And the tailbone injury is the worst thing in the world because it's like it shocks you up to your shoulders and down to your ankles. It's but I hope Jimmy goes tonight.
What I think is going to happen, and I hope it doesn't, is that because you're already seeing enough of this, like, Ant-Man, John Morant, it's part of the reason why they're shooting threes. And I think the league shoots too many threes, but I think that this is going to make the case of why you don't drive to the paint, why it is that you don't want to break down a defense. And I think it's going to create even more of an influence as to why some of these superstars are going to continue to shoot threes. And I don't think that's good for the sport.
Well, the simple answer is not so much the three. Let's take a look at Kawhi Leonard and him rumbling around and getting mid-range.
Yeah, no, I think, that's a good point, Scott. Sorry, go for it.
It's like guys have just forgotten mid-range or the cursed long two. But it's, especially when you got a guy like that in that series just rumbling around on the Nuggets and, shooting stuff at the free throw line. Quick notes about the other series. In a way, when you guys were talking about the Lakers and the Timberwolves, I'm beginning to think the Timberwolves are winning that series.
Oh, yes, they are.
Basically because the Lakers don't have any size. And secondly, if you're relying on a 40-year-old man, regardless of what kind of shape he's in, you have an issue. Now, I'll give the Lakers this much credit. The one thing about the Luka deal that has helped them, that really has kind of like given the franchise back to Genie and Pelinka, is that they now have a future after LeBron if LeBron ever decides to leave. Yep. It's going to take some time to rebuild around that. And of course, the other thing was privately, I don't think LeBron was real happy about that deal when it was made because he realized suddenly it ain't his team no more.
I got you, Scotty. Appreciate it. We want to get some other people in here at 888-957-9570. All fair points. I think, for me to go back to his original point and what we were talking about earlier, this game tonight is going to come down to, I think, Dan, really, this is a game where the Warriors' young talent must grow up. You need Moody, Podziemski, Post, and potentially Kuminga. They've got to match the talent of a young Rockets team. I thought we saw Houston mature between game 1 and game 2. Obviously, the most obvious example of that was Jalen Green. You need one of your younger players now, especially if Jimmy Butler is not available tonight, to take the next step. Because if we're asking who's going to step up, who needs to be the X factor, it's got to be one of those guys. I know that Draymond can obviously play better. Steph is going to try and do his thing. But the Rockets are going to place pressure on the people that have not been in that situation before. And that is the 25 and unders. One of those guys has got to make a play.
And it's Jonathan Kuminga, I think. Again, he's at the front of that line. And we can talk a lot more about him. Let's open up the phone lines.
All right, let's go to Sean in Petaluma, has an X factor for us. Sean, how we doing? Good morning.
Hey, good. How are you guys doing? Good morning.
Fantastic.
I just want to say the X factor, to me, is basically kind of the collective of the role players. But I would say, honestly, it is Buddy Hield. because his defense, he has like moments where he like has a play where it's just like, okay, like that saved us. But man, if he could just make a couple more of those threes, we would be in such a better position. Thanks. Have a good one.
I mean, I agree.
Yeah, and if my aunt had testicles, she'd be my uncle. I mean, it ain't happening.
Who are you? Who are you?
I'm just saying, yeah, if you can make some of those threes, but
and if it was a fifth, we'd all be slammed right now. I mean, no, I'm with you, but I do think it's fair to ask whether it's Podziemski, who's, again, he's supposedly not ill tonight, doesn't have that stomach bug that he was dealing with in Game 2. Moody, I think, is you got to have your feet wet at this point in the series. He's played, big minutes in both these games. You need those guys to play aggressive. And I know that you're playing with a lot of OGs, and Steph has now played in about 150 playoff games, and Draymond a little less, and Jimmy obviously a ton, but you cannot rely on those guys to make every single play. And I think that Pods and Moody specifically, because they're both starters, they're not afraid necessarily of the moment, but this is a game at home. You're going to have the crowd behind you. You don't have to worry about the F you Draymond chants or, people trying to test you and the Rockets feeling good in the South. No. Home crowd's going to be there for you. It's going to be raucous tonight. Go out and seize it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was thinking about some original chants the Warriors can come up with tonight. Instead of like when Steph's at the line, MVP. He's not going to be the MVP this year. Yeah, I know. He's Steph.
Well, there's a couple.
Here's what they ought to do.
There's a couple for Udoka that my friends have sent in a group chat, and I don't know if they're for radio.
You know what they ought to do is that when either Kuminga or Buddy Hield goes to line, you get a MDP chant, most disappointing player.
NDP?
Yeah. I think we're sort of dancing around the issue, but let's get into it.
Let's do it.
I think Kuminga has well, first of all, we could talk about his performance in Game 2. I think Kuminga certainly has the resume of being the guy. Again, you need points from someone not named Steph if Butler can't go. Can Jonathan Kuminga be the guy? Again, here we go again. I don't want to be a guy that's the apologist for Jonathan Kuminga. I'm just looking at the state of affairs of the Golden State Warriors. I criticize Jonathan Kuminga as much as anybody on this show. I mean, there were times where coach would call me up and just go after me because I pointed out how he missed that rotation on that buzzer beater by Austin Reeves to the Los Angeles Lakers. And the fact that defensively he has his heads in the cloud, it's not on the ball defense, it's knowing about rotations. But right now, where you're at, you're not trading for anybody, all right? You're not picking anybody up. This is who you have, and he has the resume of scoring the basketball. Now, he's clearly in his head. He is clearly a guy that is thinking about, I've got to make sure that I get other people involved, that if I miss a shot, I don't have the liberty of missing 2 or 3 in a row. He is the one thing that I do want to point out, because I heard this, and a lot of people are saying he doesn't care, or he comes into games and he's smiling, or he just doesn't get the level of importance. He doesn't understand. Listen, I think this guy was just shocked as anybody. He got the message from Steve Kerr that when he didn't, this is the 3rd leading scorer on the basketball team. This is a guy that thought he was eyeing a potentially $35 to $38 million contract. It's all on the line. And then he gets, not only does he not play, but he's DNP'd for the most important part of the games. He's DNP'd for the postseason. He gets them. He understands the importance. I think his body language sometimes gets misinterpreted. But I think when you think about the Golden State Warriors right now and their roster A through Z, Jonathan Kuminga has the potential of being the guy again who can give you those points. I think that if he's going to play, he has to be given the latitude. Somebody has to blow in his ear. We need you tonight, and you're not going to get pulled if you miss your first shot or your first couple of shots. I need you because you have the ability. I know you have the confidence. I need you to take Tari Eason. I need you to take Dylan Brooks. I need you to take whoever's watching you off the dribble, get to the rim and make something happen. You have the ability to puncture that defense. Do it, and do it with some consistency.
Like, I'm with you for the most part. I just wonder if it's fair to expect all of that. Like, in game 2, he was thrown into the fire. I did not expect him to play well. He did not play well. That is a situation where it's like, dude, you've got 3 DMPs in a row. Go out there and try and make something happen. He didn't. Doesn't shock me whatsoever. The issue now is that in game 3, if Jimmy Butler does not play tonight, you are going to need to play him. That's 42 minutes available, which is what Jimmy played in game 1. Kuminga's going to get a lot of those minutes. And to your point, I actually think he's going to get some rope because there's just not many people on the roster that you can give those minutes to. I also think they're going to have to trust him the way that they trusted him before Butler got there. And it's been a long time since he's been that player. That's, again, why when I'm talking about growing up, you got to do it fast. And that is really, really hard. I actually don't want to see Kuminga smile tonight. If he plays, and I actually think, I'll say this, if Butler doesn't play, I think there's a very good chance Kuminga starts tonight. I don't want to see him smile at all. This is not the time to be feeling happy or trying to make yourself feel better about playing or having fun. No. That team on the other end is trying to rip your freaking head off.
I think he knows that.
I don't want to see teeth tonight from Kuminga. I'm serious. I want to see however mean Jonathan Kuminga can get as a basketball player on the floor if he's allowed to play and get run and get an opportunity to help this team. That's the player that he has to be. I don't want to see happy-go-lucky JK tonight. I want to see the toughest, tenacious version of him that he has to offer.
Well, that's sort of my point. I don't think he's happy-go-lucky. I think that's sort of the misinterpretation. I think that's sort of a narrative people are buying into.
No, I think he is a nice guy.
No, but he's a nice guy. But my point is that after what it is that he's going through at a young age, he's got the wake-up call. There's nothing nonchalant or there's nothing happy-go-lucky or this is just another game. He recognizes that I've got to do something. Like, I just got slapped in the face. He's not accustomed to this. People have been opening doors for this guy. They recognize his talent. They talk about him being a star, and he's sitting. He got it. There is nothing that he doesn't understand at this point. So I think when people, it's a bit of a misinterpretation. I didn't really see him smile, but he knows the importance of what's in front of him, not only with Houston, but his entire career. And that's a bit much because he's so young. There's going to be a lot of peaks and valleys and ebb and flow between now and whenever it is that he hangs it up. But he's still, again, much like that of last week. And when I talk about Jonathan Kuminga has the potential, the one guy of giving you the sort of points that you were talking about.
Yeah, no, look, I'm not trying to say literally can't express himself. But the point is, I feel like Jonathan, and this is one of the, oftentimes his comments are misconstrued and he's portrayed as like this malcontent. And I think he's the opposite. I think he is a very nice individual. I think he's a respectful human being, almost to a fault sometimes with the way that he's kind of been jockeyed around, and he finally came out after the game and said, "I'm tired of people telling me to stay ready." That kind of edge, that chip on your shoulder, I don't see him play with that all the time. Sometimes he does, like against the Lakers. He was ferocious. That's the version that the Warriors will need tonight if they're going to win without Jimmy. And again, Butler could play. Kuminga could be resignated to the bench. I'm not sure. But if he does get an opportunity to get run tonight and to help this team, I think that he has to be at a different level. And so that emotional jubilance that he often displays, I think he's got to put that in his back pocket tonight. Because the other thing too is like, Houston's going to try and beat him up. Houston is going to try to do to Jonathan Kuminga what they are trying to do to the Warriors as a whole, which is make them feel them, get in their jersey, get them to soften up a little bit. And he's got to play. This is the playoffs, man. And he's a little bit behind the 8 ball because he hasn't had the chance to really play much in these big moments and in big games because he's been DMP'd. So he's got to grow up quickly.
You know who Moses Scurry is?
I don't know. Is he from the 1930s? Is he playing pinstripes and he's part of a ballet? I don't know.
He used to be this forward or center that played for Jerry Tarkanian at UNLV. They won a national championship. And every time he grabbed the rebound, he'd have this primal yell that you could hear throughout the entire gym. There could be 25,000 people. You could hear Moses Scurry every rebound. Ah! I want to hear that from Jonathan Kuminga. Like, I almost feel as though he needs a therapist on the defensive end. Let it out. Scream. Take a charge and scream. Let it go. Be a dog. Let's get to the phone lines.
All right. Pasta's on the phone right now. So in the meantime, this is from our YouTube chat, everyone's worst nightmare. All Curry does is smile and play soft, but Kuminga can't smile. Stop the JK hate. You're right. Curry does play with joy. But in these kinds of games, I think Curry's the guy that is screaming the most. Like, Curry is demonstrative. He's playing rough and tough. When he's off the court, he's the nice guy. In the regular season, you'll see him smile sometimes. But in playoff basketball, Curry's actually the one I feel like yells the most. He's the one that flexes his muscles and tries to get the crowd into it and grits his teeth. That's what I'm talking about. The expression, the emotion should not be manifested itself. And it's like, I just feel like we're not here to have fun at this point in the season. We're here to win. And that's the message that Steve Kerr has sent down the rest of his roster. And I think it's the reason why Kuminga hasn't played a whole lot in recent memory. It's because Kerr wants to win. And with Jimmy Butler on the floor, Kerr, doesn't feel like Kuminga gives them the best chance to do it. All right, let's go to Barrow in Oakland. Barrow, what's going on? You're on Warriors This Week. How we doing?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I'm a long-time listener, more than 30 years, 29, first-time caller. Let's talk about the lineups of the Warriors, which I think should be primary or number one talking point instead of these Kuminga, Butler, Houston is hurting us. Tell me what's wrong with this lineup. And we all know that the Kerr tried like 3 million lineups, but never this one. Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler as the main ball handler, less double teaming, less turnovers from Steph Curry, and more freedom for Steph Curry to do his things that he's doing all these years.
All right, appreciate the call, Barrow. I see everyone on the phone lines, 888-957-9570. I see you, Austin. I see you, George. I see you from the 479. Get in with our guy, Pasta. He'll get you on hold. We'll get you on the other side, but we got to hit a break here on Warriors This Week. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone. We'll be back after this on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, it's Willard and Dibbs for Safeway. Enjoy these amazing deals for members.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
All right, good morning, everyone. Halfway home here on Warriors This Week, getting you set for Game 3 of the Warriors and the Rockets first-round Western Conference Series. Someone's going to have the upper hand after tonight. Obviously, the biggest question is Jimmy Butler and his availability. GP2 also listed as questionable with a shoulder injury, and so who's it going to be on tonight? Is it going to be squarely on Steph and Draymond? Is it going to be on a hampered Jimmy Butler if he's available to go? Could it be on Jonathan Kuminga, who we've talked about, Moody, Podziemski, Post? The Rockets showed a very different version of themselves in Game 2. I personally believe they got to prove it moving forward that they can do that 4 times out of 7. But I think Dan and I are on the same page. This is going to be a long series, and I'm not sure who that necessarily benefits, but odds are the younger team.
Yeah, well, and then you're saying Houston.
Yeah.
And when you talk about a long series that's going to get this physical, sort of where we started the show, is that what are you going to have left in the tank when it comes to the semifinals? And how much is this going to take out of you when you talk about leaning on Steven Adams, dealing with Şengün, Dillon Brooks, hitting you across the chops every other play? Are you going to have enough rest? Are you going to be in the proper frame of mind physically to get to the semis? Because it really does become a battle of attrition from this point forward.
Yeah, and they've been fighting this battle for a long time. Again, this is not just their first, real push. They've been fighting for 2 months now. And that's kind of we talked about this when they made the trade for Jimmy Butler. I wasn't worried about, I don't know if they were going to go 24-6, but if you're playing playoff basketball for 2 months, that's going to take a toll. And then you got to play 2 more months if you want to try and win a championship. And the Warriors are trying to do just that. They're fighting with a feisty, young Houston Rockets team. Let's go down to San Jose, bring on our guy, Austin. Austin, good morning. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Hey, guys, what's going on? Great show, as always. Listen, a couple things. One is I think what the challenge is in this series is the youth, but I think they're also unpredictable. And I think Udoka kind of counts on that. For a veteran team like the Warriors, I think they'd rather play a team that's more predictable, like a Boston or someone you kind of know what you're dealing with. What makes Houston dangerous is that they're unpredictable. You mentioned the first game they came out and Jalen Green couldn't hit anything. The next game, the guy comes out and really shows his talent. Brooks is capable. Dillon is capable of shooting a lot better. So I think you can expect him. And then Şengün, I hate to admit it, but the Warriors don't really have an answer for him. It's a very bad matchup for Draymond. They're still trying to get on the Draymond skin, so he's got to fight to keep that temper of his under control. So I think Udoka is really coaching a real smart series up to this point. And the first game, Warriors fans are talking about a sweep after they won that game. Steph Curry made 2 impossible shots. Now, I know Steph can make them, but 2 of those shots were just come on, man. So that game was a lot closer. The first game was a lot closer than I think Warrior fans would want to admit. So I see this series going 6, 7, maybe 7. And if it goes 7, guys, all bets are off. Because I'll be back in Houston, I think. So I think it's easily going to go 6. Tonight's game was a toss-up, even with Butler. I don't know that, when Butler was on the court, Houston was still winning the game.
Yeah.
So I know that Jimmy Butler makes a big difference. I think the Jimmy Butler factor, guys, showed itself when he left because they got disorganized again. The Warriors looked like the Warriors before he came. And to Dan's point, who's going to shoot? The guys didn't want to shoot all of a sudden. They were indecisive. Moody got back to being the old Moody where he didn't know whether he wanted to take a shot or pass it. Podziemski was sick, but if we're relying on Podziemski to cover that, I think we're in trouble. I don't believe he's that kind of a shooter. Final thing on Jonathan Kuminga, guys. I feel like we're beating a dead horse. But the only thing I'll say about Jonathan, I've been on record to say I think the organization is as culpable as Jonathan. We can talk about JK and whether he shows up, what he needs to do, but they've put this young guy in a really bad situation in terms of performance. He's expected to go out and hit it out of the park when everybody else is allowed to make mistakes. I think it's they just bundled this whole thing, and I can't say it's just Kerr. I'm going to blame the whole Warrior organization. 1, they drafted him, and 2, it was up to them to develop him. After 4 years, you're telling me this guy should be playing. He should be challenging Jalen Green. He should be covering Jalen Green. He shouldn't be coming in as a backup at this point. So that's kind of where I'm at with Jonathan. Guys, I'll keep listening. Great show as always. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Austin. I mean, I think from the development standpoint,
he's out on Podziemski as much as you are. That's saying a lot.
No, I'm not on Podziemski. I'm not on Pods like I'm in on Buddy. You know, it's a little tongue in cheek. I actually think that Pods has a chance to be a swing player in this game because I realize that you don't want to depend on him to be your third scorer potentially, but he had a stretch for that last month of the season where he was shooting the hell out of the basketball, and he makes the Warriors very difficult to beat if he's shooting 40% from 3-point range. I don't know if he could do it for a long time, but I don't think it's out of the question that Pods can knock down 3 or 4 in this game tonight, especially if he's 100%.
Yeah, no, they're going to need everybody. They're going to certainly need him. You know, hearing Austin reminded me, because I think we both are a bit culpable here, because I agreed with him at the time, and Austin's one of our favorites here because he knows what's up. But he pointed out about a month ago how Jimmy Butler didn't have the same lift. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
He's like, Jimmy Butler just doesn't have the same lift.
No, he was pretty high when he came down and hit his ass.
And that's the point I want to make is that I think that was true early on. And I think we have to keep in mind he missed nearly like 2 months of the season. But just before the injury the other night, he was becoming Jimmy Butler again offensively. Like, I think the first month when he was with the Warriors, despite the fact that they pivoted and were playing so well, Jimmy Butler was being a guy he was trying to get everybody else involved almost to a fault. Certainly he had created an identity and he brought the defensive presence. But I think that he just, the idea of passing out when he was so deep in the paint, the last maybe 10 days, coincidentally, when the postseason, the play-in started, this dude has become the Jimmy Butler that we're all very intimately familiar with when it comes to playoff Jimmy. He is scoring at a high volume, giving you those 25 to 30 points and then doing all the other things he was doing that first month of the season. And that explosion we were talking about, the lift, I think that returned to his game as well.
I am worried, though, if he plays tonight. And there were kind of conflicting reports, right? Yesterday, before Steve Kerr's presser, Shams Charania of ESPN mentioned serious jeopardy. That's what Jimmy Butler's status or his availability was. It was in serious jeopardy for Game 3. Steve Kerr comes out yesterday, says he's relatively optimistic at the podium, but we'll see. Game time decision. I am afraid that no matter what, he's not going to be at 100%. And that full lift that we've seen the first couple of games, I don't know if it's going to be there. And what kind of player is Jimmy Butler? Now, he, to me, is a guy that impacts so many other parts of the game that if he's not as aggressive offensively, he can still help you. Defense, rebounding, he can move the ball, but they're at their best when Jimmy is aggressive. They're at their best when Jimmy is getting 15 to 20 shots up or 15 to 20 scoring opportunities, getting to the free throw line, all the rest. If he can't be that guy, how does he play? How does he still help the Warriors? That's a question that I have for this game. And I think, to Austin's point, the Warriors are who they are. They have won with a particular formula that has included Jimmy Butler, and that's who they've really relied on. If they don't have him tonight, I'm not really sure how they're going to look because they have leaned so much into this reliance on Butler, playing 38, 37 minutes a night, 40-plus minutes a night, that in a way, in Game 2, when he went out, it was like they were stripped of their identity. And if he's not available tonight, they have to figure out how to get that back very quickly.
I think Steve Kerr has certainly based this on nothing more than just listening to Steve Kerr press conferences throughout the years. There's a weird sort of sense of confidence, I think, that he has that he can beat Houston. I think Steve Kerr feels as though the Warriors can handle the Houston Rockets. And I also would take it a step further. And I think Steve Kerr, I think he truly believes he can. You only need one. You're only going to need, I think, one of these games without Butler, and you get to win one of these games. And I think Steve Kerr thinks his Warrior team can do that. Now, how is that going to shake out? Is it going to be Podziemski who's going to erupt? Is it going to be Moses Moody finally looking at the rim and attacking the rim like he was about a month ago? Is it Jonathan Kuminga that suddenly has a break? I'd love to see that, where he goes nuts for another 33 as he's done previously against this Houston Rocket team. But I do think that you don't know until you actually play. You hear about the preview, you talk about it, you have the 4 days off, you're thinking about Houston. And then once the ball's tipped and once you play a game and you get your feet wet, I think you'll be able better understanding and assessment as to who the 2025 Houston Rockets are. And now that they've showed their hand, I don't know, could be wrong. I think Steve Kerr just has this, after watching this guy so many times, I just get the sense that he's like, we're going to be okay. We'll get past Houston.
I think the entire Warriors team believes that they're better than Houston. How the Rockets, like game 1 to game 2, they were a different squad, but on paper, the Warriors are a better team. I believe that. And I think the Warriors believe that, which is why also this game it's important, but I don't view it as a must win. Like, in fact, I think Jimmy Butler is the kind of player that...
Well, they're all must wins, though, to me.
No, they're not. They're I mean, not literally.
Well, yeah, unless you're down 3-1 or 3-0, it's a must win.
No, I mean, I think game 2 is a must win for Houston. If you lose that game, this series, the writing's on the wall. The Warriors are not afraid of going down 2-1. They have come back from down 2-1, I believe, against Sacramento a couple of years ago in the first round series.
Maybe not must win, but
down 2-1 against Boston in the finals.
But the level of importance, I don't think and I know this isn't what you're saying, that any Warriors thinking, well, if we lose tonight, it's not the end of the world. Like, I don't think that's in the mindset, certainly any of the Warriors. I think every single game, maybe it's not a must win, quote, air quotes, but every game is effing huge.
No, I'm not trying to downplay the importance of it, but I think that the Warriors, especially their top 3 players, are like, all right, let's go get this game. But if we don't, we're not dead. In fact, if Jimmy Butler doesn't play in this game, and I hear you 510, by the way, on the Boxer and Gerson work injury attorneys text line, Jimmy's injury is not serious at all. It's all hype. It's an effing bruise. Yeah, it's a deep glute bruise. But if Jimmy doesn't play tonight, which there is a possibility of, by the way, Steph missed a week with the same injury. Kuminga missed a game with the same injury. Butler's so damn competitive that even if he missed 2 games, I bet he's like, we're winning this series. Like, remember last year when he was on Miami, which was kind of the beginning of the end with him and Pat Riley? He's like, if I'm playing, we're winning, man. Like, Jimmy Butler is so bleeping confident that they could be down 3-0 in a series, and he thinks they're winning the next 4 games. Like, whether it happens or not, it never happened in NBA history. But I don't think the Warriors are dead in the water, and I don't think Jimmy believes that the Warriors are dead in the water if he doesn't play tonight. And they lose, because all they got to do is get 1. And I also think that if this series goes 7, home court, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Houston Rockets. They've never been in that spot before. They're at home. The Warriors have won Game 7s on the road, in fact, in Houston before. So I think that this game is one you want to get, one you would love to win. It is not by any means a must-win game for the Golden State Warriors.
By the way, Jimmy, and I'm not talking about Butler, but Jimmy on the 510 on the text line.
Yeah.
It's just an effing bruise. It's not serious at all. My man, I guarantee you, me, Ev, Pasta, we wouldn't get out of bed for a week, 2 weeks. I wouldn't even want to see that thing. That thing must be so sensitive.
It's like a bone bruise right now.
But can you imagine what that looks like, man? I mean, it just must be so painful to do anything right now. But he is right. There is no structural damage, right? Like, it's not a cartilage. It's not like an ACL. It has nothing to do in terms of a fracture or a break of the pelvic bone. Since when did your ass become a pelvic area?
It's been labeled they're the Golden State pelvises at this point. It's like Curry's had one, Kuminga's had one, Jimmy Butler's on his on his left cheek at this point.
It's not medically, though, if you're landing on your butt. Isn't there another another phrase for it. I guess it's sort of like, I know it's the pelvic area, but he landed on his ass.
His glute?
Yeah, it's a glute injury. Thank you, Pasta.
Yeah, it's his ass. He hurt his ass.
Yeah, not
his buttocks.
All right.
That's what Kalena was saying. It's always funny kind of dancing around it. Let's get out to, we got some time here. Let's go out to North Carolina and talk to Tim, one of our favorites here. Tim, what's going on, man? Good afternoon. How we doing? Timmy. All right, Tim, call.
Tim, it's game day for crying out loud.
Tim, call back. Pasta.
Come stronger than that.
All right, Tim, call back. We can pot him down, Pasta.
Oh, is he on?
No, I guess we couldn't find him. He'll call back. He'll be in. Wants to talk about his boy, JK.
I want to get into some JK. Really quick, I don't mean to interrupt.
That's your show.
I guess the one thing about, and we have to keep this in mind, I'm such a big fan of Steve Kerr. Now, I know I go after him from time to time. If you do a show like this, you're going to lob some grenades at the head coach. But let's keep in mind, and by the way, Pasta, if you get an opportunity, actually, I'll ask you during the break. I do want to play some sound from Steve Kerr going back to January. I believe, was it early January when they lost to Toronto? And we'll play the sound because I'm almost certain that's the game where Steve Kerr basically said, that's on me. They were sub 500. They hit rock bottom. That's the same game in the press conference where you heard Steph Curry basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, saying, hey, listen, man, it's over. There's not one player that's going to come here and turn this thing around, all right? We can't just be throwing around assets. We got younger players. And Steph went as far as to say, we have to think about this when we leave. I mean, that's how bad things were. We can't leave the cupboard bare. Like, it was over for the Warriors. And, of course, we know what happened. There was one player that saved everything. But Steve Kerr also intimated this is on me. The reason why we're not good, I made bad coaching decisions. The reason why I point that out is that as much of a fan as I am of Jonathan Kuminga right now, that I do think he should play, I'll always defer to Steve Kerr. Like, Steve Kerr knows this team intimately much more than I ever will, and he's a guy that has always stood his own convictions, even when things were going wrong. As I mentioned in that game against Toronto back in January, where you were at the bottom rung of the ladder.
Yeah.
And now, even when you're in the playoffs, he's sticking by his own guns of this is how I do things. So I think at the end of the day, as much as I'll sit here and blow on a live mic that I think Jonathan Kuminga is the one guy who can score, if Steve Kerr's not playing him, it's for a reason.
Well, let's before we get out to the phone lines, Pasta, could we play that cut from Steve Kerr? Here's the one that DeBone was talking about.
Just didn't get good looks, didn't execute very well, weren't disciplined enough, and that's my fault. I'm the coach of the team. I have to find a way to help this team, and I'm not doing a good job of that. Down the stretch, we're not executing, but that's happening throughout the game at both ends. Missed rotations, missed coverages on defense, and then poor possessions offensively. It's on me.
That was from January 13th after the loss to the Toronto Raptors.
And when sub 500, I think they fell down to the 10 seed. You know what? Pasta, can you do me a favor? Send that clip to Doc Rivers, wherever he is.
And they won last night.
For the one guy who points a finger at everybody but himself, all those 3-1 series leads that he blew was not his fault.
No, it's
Ben Simmons.
It's on the well. Kind of was on Ben Simmons.
Hey, he's contributing.
Oh, my God. By the way, Doc Rivers, congratulations on your last playoff win. Took 37 points from Gary Trent Jr. Postseason record, 9 threes for that franchise. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. Tim is ready. I think we got him here from North Carolina. Timmy, what's up, man?
All right, guys. What's up? Can y'all hear me this time?
Yeah. I got you. Loud and clear.
Okay. Hey, I was agreeing with y'all earlier. I heard Devon saying it earlier, and I think you, Evan, when you were saying this formula of just heavy reliance on these two guys have kind of got us here. I think this formula get us through this round. I really do. I think big picture, it's going to probably come crashing down, maybe against Minnesota, but definitely against OKC. I mean, and on the Kuminga thing, Devon, and I hear you, and I don't know. I wouldn't, you're a smart guy. I wouldn't just say, I'm going to totally defer to Kerr on this one. I think, listen, I think the young man's mental stability right now is toast. I mean, guys, this is 3 years in a row that right before the playoffs, you are just getting it yanked right out under you. And this one is a little more egregious because it came out of nowhere. I don't expect nothing from him. If y'all hear him after the game the other day when he was talking with Slater and Kawakami, most of Kuminga's comments was like, trying to keep my mentals good and not wanting to go out there and mess up. I mean, guys, at this point, you've played sports, guys, and once your mentals are kind of wavering, and I think he's a mentally tough kid. I really do. But at this point, guys, what the hell are you supposed to do, Devon? Yes, third leading scorer, we all agree. But I think just DNPs, boom, 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 like out of nowhere. Not even 5 minutes, not even 10, not even some way keep a rhythm. You're asking just too much. You're asking too much. The Jonathan Kuminga, before the injury, we can't get that guy back. The coach has he's made a point for the world to see, I don't think I need you. I don't think I need you. And then everyone knows now in his mental mind, okay, you do need me, but I really know you don't want me. So, this is deep, man. This is deep. Even the veterans, guys, it goes back to Steph wanting G to close that game 4 or 5 games ago. Kuminga knows Steph don't even really want him out there. Guys, it's a mental juggle right now. And again, there's no excuses for the kid. I just don't think at 22 years old, with the way his career has gone here and all of the herky-jerky, guys, we've seen it. Even when he's filled in admirably for Wiggins 2 of the last 3 years, he filled in phenomenally. What happened as soon as Wiggins came back? His ass was back on the bench. This kid's mental makeup on this team is just a yo-yo. I don't think it's anything left. And I think at this point, it is some closure. It is some finality. And I don't know if anything can be done. Guys, you guys play sports. You know how hard that would be. And imagine a 22-year-old who's kind of been all over the place the way he has. You know what I mean? So, Look, I think the formula you said, Evan, with, heavy reliance on these two guys, I think that's good enough. We'll get through this one. But the way Minnesota looks right now, they look damn good. But I definitely think it run out when we get to OKC because, we have destroyed our third leading scorer's confidence. And I'm not saying we. I'm just saying kind of the way this happened, the confidence is in the toilet. And it's not going to come back out for these playoffs. It's just too deep, I think. So, all right, fellas. But, Devon, give yourself credit, man. You're a smart guy. Why would you defer, man? You're making great points. Your third leading scorer, completely confident, shattered. I don't think you're doing anything wrong, kind of questioning the coach on that, man.
Yeah, but don't doubt yourself, D.
No, let me just clarify. Good call, by the way.
Thanks, Tim.
Because I couldn't agree with Tim more. While I respect the hell out of Steve Kerr, and Steve Kerr knows the team much better than I do, I went on record last week, and I want to continue once again this week just to clarify what it is that I said. Maybe there was some misinterpretation. I get it. I disagree with this wholeheartedly. I disagree of the fact that you're not playing Jonathan Kuminga, and Kuminga is not being more relied upon, especially for a team that needs someone to score the basketball. Hello, he's here and he's always been there. So while I'm a Steve Kerr guy, I can also disagree with his decisions. And in this one, I think he's wrong.
That's fair. And hey, look, if Jimmy Butler is out tonight, I think you will get your wish. I think you will see more Jonathan Kuminga. And I'm not sure how it impacts the Warriors, but Kerr is telling us that he doesn't feel confident in him enough to play when Butler's available. And I'm not sure how it's going to manifest itself if and when Kuminga is called upon tonight. But we hope that Jimmy Butler plays because I think he gives the Warriors the best chance to win. And we'll find out. 4:30 live here on Warriors Live. On 95.7 The Game, 5:30 tip with Tim Roy and Tom Tolbert. Keep it locked right here. We got one more hour left on Warriors this week, and we got your calls coming on the other side. 888-957-9570. We're back after this.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Yay!
All right, we got 2 hours in, 1 hour to go on Warriors This Week. It's a big day, and you know how I know, Dan Devone, that it's a big day. By the way, shout out to Pasta celebrating finally. He's getting around to his 22nd birthday today. Or sorry, 23. But you're going to be in the house tonight. You are going to be at Chase Center for, my recollection, the first time this season.
I want to be introduced in a spotlight.
Well, first and foremost, I'll take you around, show you all the nook and crannies of Chase Center. It's a labyrinth. You're going to get lost in there, especially down in the depths. But you wanted to go to this game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I talked to my man Luke.
Yep.
So we got you credentialed. I said, okay, what time is the car picking me up? Are we, are we going to red carpet me into this thing?
Well, it's a far trek from the Presidio, but I appreciate you making the jaunt. Probably polar opposite sides of the city.
Are you going to ask a question, Dan?
Hell no. I'll be in the press box starting the Chivano sucks chant. No, I won't do that.
Well, you wouldn't be in the press box long.
Yeah.
Well, when was the last time you...
In a box?
Well, no. You were credentialed for a game.
Oh, it's been...
Because, you've done this countless times, but it's been a while.
Yeah, so I'm curious now, are the credentials isolated, or did I get credentialed for the series? Or do they do it just for game?
I think this might be for just for one game. But if you wanted to go to game 4, it's just the same process. Luke will throw you on the list, and you'll be good to go. So you'll probably have a seat. I don't know if we'll be sitting together, but I'll finagle something.
No, I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Wear a suit?
It's a fun setup.
No suit. Maybe because it's your birthday. And apparently, well, there's a chance that we might see each other tonight.
Birthday suit. Yeah. We're going to be seeing Pasta after the game because, well, I don't want to out your lady, but there's a surprise setup for Pasta that isn't really a surprise.
Yeah.
We'll see. She's not listening, right?
No.
Okay. There you go.
Oh, well, thanks.
All right. It just outed you.
I just want to go home.
Yeah. 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone. What's going to be the difference tonight? Who's going to be the difference maker, Devone? You think it is Kuminga? Even if Jimmy doesn't play, which I hope that he does because I love watching him play basketball, gives the Warriors the best chance to win. The difference to me is I think it's going to be Houston. Houston is such a freaking wild card that, if they make 40% of their threes like they almost did in game 2, I don't see the Warriors winning this game. But if they revert back to the team that can't throw a stone into the ocean, then there's absolutely a shot that the Warriors can take this game.
Well, one thing that we had talked about are the turnovers. I think we both agree that, first of all, you can never turn the ball over. You shouldn't turn the ball over an excessive amount, but especially in the playoffs and especially against that of the Houston Rockets. Because I think the Houston Rockets, when they cross the timeline and somebody holds up their fist or a play or whatever it is, if it's Van Vliet, let's get into our action, they're just not good. Statistically, they just can't score the basketball. But you benefit them by turning the ball over. And here's where I want to go with this, is your two best players and the two veterans on this basketball team, the two guys you expect the least to turn it over, are the most haphazard with the ball, that being Steph and Draymond Green.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Butler, who is also, he's playoff Jimmy, he's the other veteran, but Jimmy does not turn the ball. Jimmy secures that. I feel confident every time he has the ball, whether it's out on the wing or whether he's in the mid post, that he's going to make the right basketball play. I don't have that confidence with those two. Now, obviously, you're going to go as far as Steph takes you tonight. I've always maintained this when it comes to Steph Curry. Never seen a basketball player like him before. He's remarkable.
Never will again.
But he's also the most frustrating superstar I think I've ever witnessed. Because with all the greatness, we're how many years into his career, and there is still, as you pointed out earlier, the cross-court one-handed hook pass that'll sail into row number 6. Or there's so much confidence in the handle that he wants to break a triple team by using his dribble and then turns it over. Again, getting back, to Tim's call earlier, where I'm a big Steve Kerr fan, but I think if you do a show like this, no matter who the coach is, we're going to levy some bombs their way. And I think one of the faults that I put on Steve Kerr as it relates to these two specifically, and I've talked about this, that I truly believe turnovers are a thing of coaching. I think that if you turn the ball, or if there's the edict of that's not allowed, just like you're raising a child, you cannot do that from year one.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. There's going to be reprimand. I'm going to point it out. You're going to sit, or it's something we're going to talk about. I don't think that you see what it is that we see on a game-to-game basis here with the Golden State Warriors. I always tell you this. Mike Holmgren, the former coach of the Seattle Seahawks, I did his show for years, and one of the things that he would do, and he was a big, imposing guy, he's like, we may lose games. We're not going to turn the ball over. We are not going to shoot ourselves in the foot. We're not going to jump off sides. We're not making stupid penalties. Now, you could say, well, you say that, but it happens to every team. Ev, year in and year out, they are at the top of the NFL in least amount of penalties. He made it something that was not going to happen with his basketball team, and as a head coach, he enforced it. And I believe that Steve Kerr, I get it, and I think that there's a method to Steve Kerr's madness, that he doesn't want to be Bobby Knight. You can't coach like even Popovich back in the day, that you have to give these guys some room for error, and there's got to be a long leash here, that you can't, you can't micromanage these guys. I get it, and it's one of the reasons why he's a successful head coach. But I think the reason why you continue to see the turnovers by your two best players and plays it, it's something that's preventable. Like, what are you doing? I think that really starts at the very top.
I think it's who they are. I mean, this is something that we disagree about. And this is an extreme example. Yes, you're right. Mike Holmgren always emphasized possession and not maximizing mistakes. However, if your quarterback is Jameis Winston, you're going to turn over the ball. Like, it comes down to personnel. And you've lived and you've died with it for 4 championships and 6 finals appearances. Like, I agree that Curry and Draymond are... Now, I also do think that there are teams that make it more difficult for them to take care of the ball. And Houston's one of those teams. They're long. They have long wingspans. They're a team that is fast. They can switch. And I think they do frustrate Steph at times. So that's going to... he's going to be looser with the ball. But... at the end of the day, Curry he's not Chris Paul.
You got to let him be Curry. I get it.
He's not Steve Nash. I mean, the same reason that he's going to throw a one-handed hook pass into the second row is the same reason he's going to drill a 30-footer.
I totally get it, but is it not still frustrating, I guess is what I'm trying to say?
No, it is, and I'll tell you why. It's also frustrating for the head coach. Remember in Game 1 when Draymond threw that ball inexplicably on an inbounds play, just taking the ball out of the basket, past Curry. They weren't on the same page, miscommunication, and Kerr immediately calls a timeout. They're up like 16. But he calls a timeout, and he just screams at Curry and Draymond, poise, poise, poise. It pisses him off, too. He's a point guard. I feel like if anybody should be mad at them, it's their head coach because he understands the value of the basketball. That's who they are. I mean, it's just who they are, and you're going to have to live with it.
I agree with you. I guess the point I'm making is just so, when you think about veterans, smart basketball players, will we not admit that Draymond and Steph are cerebral, smart basketball players to make these sort of mistakes? But I get it. It's, if you take that away from them, especially Steph isn't Steph.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I think that they're obviously both smart basketball players. But to me, the cerebral nature of, say, Draymond Green, that's something that manifests itself on the defensive end of the floor, which, by the way, reminds me real fast. You got any problem with Draymond not winning DPOY?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
Although our boy wasn't even in the top 3.
Yeah, that's a little surprising.
I mean, I understand. To me, Evan Mobley, best defender on the best team. Cleveland had, they weren't the number 1 defense. I guess that probably would have been Lou Dort, but Mobley has had the greatest impact on a 64-win basketball team. And he did it the whole year. Draymond, the last 2 months of the basketball season, was probably the best defender in the NBA, but you got to do it for a full 6 months.
He disappeared. Well, didn't disappear, but the whole team was bad for those 2 months after the 12-3 start.
Yeah. And then and that's probably why the vote was so split. Like, there was actually a lot of people that didn't have Draymond on their ballot. Like, he got more second place votes than Dyson Daniels did.
I got a question for you.
Okay.
Just to stay with us for a moment, because I don't give a rip about postseason awards. If you're a Draymond fan, a Warrior fan, who cares if he's not the DPOY? It means nothing. If he's locked in defensively right now, especially tonight, and he can guard 1 through 5, that's all you care about. Just get out there, Şengün, be Draymond. But how does Peyton Pritchard, who was a 6th man of the year, how does he do it? Like, I look at this dude, this dumpy little 6 foot, like, how does this guy score as effectively as he does? I look at him, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know.
He's a hell of a player, but I'm like, what's going on here?
You know who else is a hell of a player? 6th man of the year. I don't know if he was the runner-up, but finalist, Ty Jerome.
Yeah. Well, at least Ty Jerome, I don't know.
He can hoop.
Yeah, Ty Jerome he looks like a basketball player. I mean,
so does Pritchard.
Yeah, he just seems, I don't know. He's
quick,
sort of
man.
Lumpy. He does a lot of his damage in the paint people don't recognize. It's not just he can shoot threes, but this dude gets to the rim on people. I'm like, that perplexes me, and then we'll get into the Warriors, and then why? And I'm not being a hater. I was trying to seriously think about this. Why do people go to draft day? Like, why would you take a flight to Green Bay to sit there in the cold just to see your team's name called? What's the joy out of that? Like,
I don't know. Some of the people who are drafted don't even go. Like, I don't get it. Although, I hope the boss isn't listening. We were considering going out to Milwaukee or Green Bay, Wisconsin for the draft, like as a show, doing a draft
as a show. Or as a reporter, but like as a fan.
I don't give a rip about the NFL draft. I'm sorry. The Warriors are in the playoffs right now. I don't know if we noticed. They play at 5:30 tonight, Game 3, first round against the Rockets. That is what I am invested in right now. That's just me. Let's go to Cade at San Francisco. Has been hanging on patiently. Cade. Yeah. What's up, Cade? Most improved player of the year. How are we doing?
Guys. Pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic.
All right. I want to catch on to the point that you guys were making. The number of three-pointers that Steph Curry successfully shoots when he touches the ball the second time is pretty good, which means when he touches the ball the first time, he needs to quickly get the ball away from himself and displace himself, and he's so good at it. When he keeps the ball for a longer time during the first touch is when we have problems. So as much as Jimmy Butler situation and Kuminga's situation is a problem for us, he's giving away the ball after the first touch is a bigger problem for us. So we should be careful about that, especially with teams like Houston Rockets.
I got you, Cade. Yeah, so less on ball for Steph. That I do agree with. I know that he's, people are saying he's getting hugged and grabbed and tugged, and that's all true to some point. Shedeur Sanders got drafted by the Browns. Oh, boy. Could have been a worse draft day for him.
He's picked 144 in the 5th round.
Well, at least he's off the board. We can stop talking
Those
about
mock coconuts had him going as the number 2 quarterback overall.
I'm not saying anybody should be fired, but Mel Kiper's exit interview for the NFL draft, just keep an eye on it. All right. No, I'm just saying he had him as a top 3 player. All right. Let's go to Brian in Palo Alto. Wants to talk about Steve Kerr. Brian, what's going on, man? Good morning.
Yeah, I think Kerr does come down on turnovers. He doesn't do a lot of public sort of castigation of his own players, right? So I think probably what he says in a huddle or in a locker room is probably not super well known to us. But yeah, I'm sure he does come down on them in turnovers. Turnovers are frustrating, but those are the greatest player in the history of the franchise. One of them is the greatest player in the history of the Bay Area, right? So we'll take it. We'll take the good with the bad. And then, Dan and all these Kuminga stands, you guys complained and whined about Kuminga. Kuminga should play. He's the X factor. And then he played 30 minutes the other night, and he was hideous. And by the way, the team was hideous, but I don't think Kuminga is some sort of elixir here. He's not. And the reality is he's not the same player he was before he was hurt, right? Like, he's not been the same player since he came back. And if you were expecting the Warriors, who won 80% of their games with Butler, to completely, transform the operation to accommodate him after they became a winning team when he was gone, I don't think you're a very good sports mind, if that's what you think. So he's not been a very good player since he came back from injury. Stop blaming everybody else and start looking at Jonathan Kuminga. And again, he had a long run the other night, and he was not good. I wanted him to have a shot too, by the way, but he was not good. So let's stop complaining, right? Let's stop. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. I mean, I'll say this. There was no chance he was going to be good in that game.
No.
Like that, to expect Kuminga to come in and save the Warriors in a game like that, to me, if you did expect him to play well, you're not a good basketball mind or sportsman, whatever BPA was trying to do to take a cheap shot at you. So,
I don't think he was.
Well, I was trying to stick up for you.
You're good. What's his name? BP?
BPA.
No, you know what I would say to BPA and everybody else, that what's scary about Jonathan, well, it's not scary. Use another word, but that, you'll see this from time to time where a player won't play or get DNP because of the matchups, right? Like, we don't think this is a good matchup for this particular player, even though he's been in our rotation all year long. We shrink rotations and some players get marginalized. That's not what Steve Kerr is telling everybody. What Steve Kerr is saying is that it's not the opponent that he doesn't match up well with. It's our own team. It's Jimmy Butler. He doesn't play well with the guys that we have on our team. Well, guess what? Jimmy Butler isn't going anywhere. So what is Steve Kerr telling you? He's not part of the future. Like, he's telling everybody that Jonathan Kuminga doesn't play well with Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is going to be here for a bit. That means that Jonathan Kuminga, if I'm to read things correctly, is out the door. So I think the idea, and we don't need to necessarily go here because I'd like to focus on game 3, but the idea of a contract, the idea of his future with the Warriors, I think that's all been settled. Has it not?
No, look, it's for something after the season. I don't really see it. There's some finality coming to this situation, and we're going to discuss it whenever it happens. But again, I will say this. If Jimmy Butler is inactive for this game, you're going to need Kuminga. You just are. And that's actually, to both of your points, which is why I agree with what Brian said, to the extent of this is a completely different team. Kuminga hasn't been good since he's come back from injury. Yes, that's on him. But it's because the Warriors are totally a different basketball team with Jimmy Butler. Without Jimmy Butler, they looked, and I believe as a whole, play a little more like the team that Kuminga was actually a prominent featured player on. Now, I don't know if he can be the same guy that he was before before his injury, in fact, but they might need him to be if they're going to try and win one of these two games. So I hope that Butler's here. If he plays tonight, the Warriors are better off for it, and it makes Kuminga less relevant. But if he's not active, you're going to need the guy. Like, I just hate to break it to you. I would tell Jonathan Kuminga, I would blow into his ear before the game tonight, and he should already know this. But I would just say, listen. You're blowing into a lot of people's ear lately. I'm just saying. You're just whispering in the wind. You're not getting pulled tonight, okay? You've got a certain amount of minutes. I need you to, I said this before, go to the rack. Put pressure on the rim. We don't have anybody who can do that as well as you. And I don't care if you miss a couple of shots, continue to do it. I'm not pulling you, all right? You have my confidence because I believe in you, and I think you can get this done. You shouldn't have to do it after year 4, but I do think that message has to verbally be sent to JK at this point. Let's get to the lines. All right, if we can, let's go to Fred in Oakland, who wants to talk about the difference maker for tonight. Fred, what's up, man? Good morning.
All right, how you fellas doing?
Fantastic, man. What's up?
Well, actually, what I felt would be the difference maker tonight would be the sixth man, the crowd at Chase. I think the crowd is going to make a difference. It's going to energize the players, so that they're out there hustling, running all over the court and getting those 50-50 balls. And I think that that's going to be an extra juice for the players and the motivation, because they looked really, after Butler went out, they kind of looked lost, and looks like the air was let out of there, out of the balloon for them. And Kuminga needs to step up also. I mean, he needs to think about his money. If he wants to get paid any kind of money, he needs to show, if he's going to play tonight, he needs to show that he's worthy of something, because if not, that's going to affect him and his agent. And but I also think Moody and Podziemski will probably be key as well. If they can get in double digits, maybe 12, 15, 17 points apiece, that's going to be the difference maker as well. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in for that.
Yeah, I am 100% with you there. And we've talked a lot about Kuminga. I want to table the contract stuff. That's for down the line. But in regards to this game, Jimmy or not, Moses Moody and Brandon Podziemski have to play prominent roles. Have to play better than they've played in the first 2 games. And that's where I wholeheartedly agree that the crowd will help, because both of those 2 players, statistically, over this season, shoot it a whole hell of a lot better at Chase Center than they do away from it.
Well, what do they say when it comes to the playoffs? That's when role players excel, is when they come back home.
Yeah.
Look at Orlando. Orlando looked like they was 4-out in the first 2 games against the Boston Celtics. Back home, completely different team. And I know you and I go back and forth on OKC, but they almost got tripped up by a really bad Memphis team without Ja Morant, and they let a 29-point lead somehow slip away. But the home court advantage is real when it comes to the NBA. And I think it really means something to those players that are young and are role players, namely Podziemski and Moody.
I mean, just look at the Houston Rockets. Game 1, the role players stunk. Game 2, Tari Eason was really good. You're looking at Fred VanVleet. I know he didn't make many shots, but he was a lot better in Game 2. He's more of a veteran guy. The point stands. But my point is, some of those swing players for each team, they benefit from the home crowd. And I think Moody, almost pulled a Perkins there. Moses Moody and Brandon Podziemski, those are guys I expect to play better. Yeah.
Pasta, drop. Moody.
Moody Moses. Moses Moody. Yeah. I think those guys are going to play.
Salivating.
Those guys are going to play better tonight. I am salivating. But Dano's got you for the final segment here on Warriors This Week. I see you, Scotty. I see you, Mitch. Dan will get to your calls on the other side. 888-957-9570 is the number. What's going to be the difference tonight? What are you counting on? What do you want to see from the Golden State Warriors? What are you expecting to see from the Houston Rockets as this series returns to San Francisco tonight? 5:30 tip-off. Tim Roy, Tom Tolbert on the call here on 95.7. The game Warriors Live begins at 4:30. Game 3 and an opportunity to go up 2-1 in the series. We're back after this on Warriors This Week.
game.
Plus, I'm trying to figure out the association with Viva Las Vegas, Elvis, and the Warriors tonight. Or is there one?
There is no association.
Okay, it's just random pasta. That's what I love about you. That's Elvis for the hell of it. Dust off Elvis any opportunity you have. Why not? Hi again, everybody. It's Dan Avone. Got you covered for the last half hour. Here is the Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets will play Game 3 as things now shift to the Bay Area as the Warriors will play their first home game. Now, one thing, Pasta, that I do not want to see tonight, whether it's from Quentin Post or from Steph Curry or from Draymond Green, is any of them exalting the crowd or get up, let's go. That should already be baked in. Like, it should be one of those where it's absolute pandemonium right from the outset, or if there's a big play, or if they can sense the momentum shift, or the Warriors are on a run. It's got to be loud tonight. Place has got to be loud. I know that when Chase first opened the first couple of years, there was the constant comparisons between Chase and Oracle, and people yearned for Roracle. And those rabid fans that, for whatever reason, weren't making the trip across the bridge, primarily because it's like $120 to get a beer and $5,000 for a seat. So I feel you. But tonight has got to be, just like everybody else in the NBA, tonight has got to be a difference maker when you're talking about the first home game out at Chase. And you know the drill. We begin with the Warriors live at 4:30. Tip with Tim Roy at 5:30. It's the Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets to see who goes up and gets the upper hand 2-1 in this series, currently tied at a game apiece. All right, well, we've talked about Jonathan Kuminga. I believe that this constant conversation, which we've had not only this year, but it goes back to the last couple of years, who can score the ball consistently on a Warrior basketball team that could be without Jimmy Butler. I think Jonathan Kuminga, again, has to be that guy. He's proven it. He has the resume. He's a guy that I think is the best athlete on the team. And it's a perfect matchup for him when you think about the Houston Rockets and the sort of athletes that are going to counter, obviously, Jonathan Kuminga and the rest of that Warrior team. You need a game from Jonathan Kuminga. And if it's not Jonathan Kuminga, then Podziemski has to step up. And I have confidence in Podziemski that from what I've seen from him in his first glimpse or his first appearance in the postseason for the Golden State Warriors, that, and I didn't think this going in, that he can handle the moment. I think Podziemski is a guy I'm not that worried about, although there were times where you could clearly see that, he was looking to give up the ball a little bit sooner than he typically would if this was a regular season game. But Podziemski, I have the full, if he's healthy, if he's not dealing with the food poisoning or whatever it is that he had to go through the other night, that Podziemski can get, whether it's shooting threes or getting in the lane and hitting that runner or decelerating or the defense that he turns into offense. Podziemski's not a concern. Moody, on the other hand, just does not look like the same player that looked as though he had finally turned the corner and was filled with all that confidence that we saw a couple of months back, about a month ago, when Moses Moody, you felt had arrived. He was flexing on people. I mean, he wasn't hesitant when it came to his shot. And I think that that's something that they've been urging all along, is that Moses, go get it. Be the man. Not worried about you defensively. I think Moses Moody, with his length and his on-the-ball pressure, as well as his hustle, much like that of Podziemski, and he fits well with what is the new branded basketball team with the arrival of Jimmy Butler, that it's defense first, and statistically, certainly that has been proven out. And I think Moses Moody continues to be a plus in that area, but you need him to score the basketball. He's got to get at the rim. And there are times where, he does a little Ben Simmons, where he's not even looking at the goal. He's not even looking at the rim. And again, I don't know whether that's, I'm sure he's aware of this, but whether that's somebody has to talk to him before the game, pull him aside and saying, be assertive. We don't have Jimmy Butler. Go get yours. We know you can do it. You know you can do it. Now just make it happen against the Rockets tonight. And I think that holds true for Podziemski and all the other quote-unquote role players who typically, if the NBA throughout the years, going back in the association, the 75 years plus when you talk about basketball, that when it comes to playoff games and when it comes to home games, the role players like that of Podziemski, the role players like that of Moses Moody, the Quinton Post, always play well at home. And so that's a plus for Golden State, and that has to be the case tonight. So there could be, and who knows how it's going to play out tonight. I think we always want to, and we want to anticipate how a game is going to take place, but every playoff game has its own personality. There's going to be a scenario tonight that none of us anticipated that. I can pretty much guarantee. And somebody could step up. It could be GP2 with a 3-ball surge tonight. Every game takes on a different personality than the one before it. But I think that I'm overstating the obvious. If you don't have Jimmy Butler available tonight, then I think that if it's Podziemski, it's got to be Moody, it's got to be Quinton Post, and maybe you don't need a breakout game for those guys. But if Podziemski's giving me 10 or 12 or 13 and I'm getting 14 or 15 from Moses Moody or vice versa, and Quinton Post is giving me double digits, that's enough. That's enough. And if GP2's good, but it's really on the offensive end. And I know Ev and I were going back and forth on this. He believes that it's the defense that's a little bit more concerning. Houston's doesn't scare me offensively. Had to hit the cough button there. Dealing with the cold this past week.
I was like, should I say something? Jeez, Dan.
I mean, that's right, Posse. You hand off to you. Come on, man. Get in there. It's your birthday, for crying out loud. Might be the only time I let you on the mic.
It was. Tuesday.
So, and Posse, let's work you in here. I believe that it's got to be, how I feel about Jonathan Kuminga. And there's a chance that Jonathan Kuminga goes off tonight. And I know a lot of people are like, that's not going to happen. I'm not seeing any signs. Well, again, you have no idea what happens in the playoffs from game to game. I do not be surprised if we're talking about Jonathan Kuminga and he dominates the conversation all next week. That's a real potential because we've seen it, and we've seen it specifically against Houston. He has the capability of doing that. I'm not going to be surprised if he becomes the X factor in all of this. But Pasta, let's bring you in. Who is it that you see, or is it sort of a collab, as they like to say? Is it a collaborative effort? If Jimmy Butler can't play tonight, who picks up that slack?
Well, first of all, I agree with you that it is on the offensive side. I think that's kind of where you need to be. You need to have difference makers on the offensive side tonight. And if Jimmy Butler's not playing, I think Jonathan Kuminga is the guy. And, he is the topic of conversation on this station throughout the week, usually when it's warranted or not. But this is the chance for me to see if he could play with Steph Curry the way a lot of people don't think he can. So that is what I'm going to look to see. Can Jonathan Kuminga play with Steph Curry as effectively, as efficiently? And yeah, it's up to Pods and Moody and those guys to step up too. And you're going to miss the way Jimmy opens up the floor. But I think collectively, if those guys are able to get good looks, then you might have yourself, a chance to salvage a game here in game 3. But I think Kuminga is going to be an X factor here. And I know we've said that before, but we'll have to see what happens. But I do agree.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you that he's such a good player, especially when Steph Curry and Draymond Green are not available. I think he gets into his own head, as does Moses Moody, as does a lot of those players. And I understand that. You got 2 future Hall of Famers and you're just a kid. You're gonna look, if Steph Curry is open, you got to give him the basketball. And I've always felt that Jonathan Kuminga believes that he can take anybody off the bounce, he can ISO on anybody, and he can take them to the rack. I truly believe that he feels as though he's got the skill to deal on anybody in the NBA. But the dilemma often becomes with him is that I got Steph. Steph is our number one option. And so while I know I can get mine, I got to keep one eye on Steph because if he's open, I got to give him the basketball. Simply because I know that I'm going to hear about it if I don't. And that's quote unquote what it is that I'm supposed to do. I think when you remove Steph from the equation, if for some reason you need Steph tonight, obviously tonight's not going to be the night. But when Steph's out of the game or Steph's not available, when you look at the history of Jonathan Kuminga in games where Steph doesn't play, or those games when Draymond doesn't play, and it's almost as if that piano's been literally removed from his back. He's like, it's about me, and I have the utmost confidence that I can get mine. And more often than not, he does. Again, they didn't have Draymond and or Steph available in a game against the Rockets earlier this year, in a game in which they won, and he went for 33. And it was an efficient 33. But I do think he gets into his own head that when Steph's on the floor, he thinks about being deferential. And I think the same when Draymond's on the floor, that he overthinks things. And I think you can pound things now. And I know some of the callers brought this up earlier in the show. You can pound things now with that. He's really at a point where he doesn't know what's up or what's down at this point. And I think that was sort of evident in that game too, where he got run, where he's just, his confidence has been shot. And you could make the argument, well, listen, if you're going to be a good player, you got to be ready and you got to be a confident player regardless of what's happened. You have to believe in your own skill set. That's true for some players, but I do think that every player is different, and I think he's a little bit more sensitive. I think he's a little bit more emotional. He's a little bit more sort of aware of those sort of things, as opposed to someone like, I don't know, LaMelo Ball, for example, or, these players who have no conscience. They'll shoot three-pointers off of 1 foot, and if they miss their first 5, they're shooting the next 5. They don't care. I think playing for the Warriors, where you have the history of championships centered around those two players, Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and of course Steve Kerr pulling the trigger, that it doesn't work like that in this organization with this franchise. And so there's a lot of thinking that goes on with Jonathan Kuminga. But I do think that when he's just an athlete and he's just asked to be Jonathan Kuminga and just let her rip and don't worry about anything else, I think Jonathan Kuminga could be a very, very dangerous basketball player. Now, the defense, the intensity, I don't have excuses for. That's always going to sort of haunt him. But I know offensively, and I mentioned and I emphasize offense because that's what they're going to need tonight. Just to boil it down to its simplest form is that you're going to need someone who can score the basketball or be a threat to put pressure on the rim. It's not only scoring the basketball. Buddy Hield can score the basketball. Podziemski has the potential of scoring the basketball. But somebody who can score the basketball by creating their own. Doesn't have to be opportunistic basketball coming off of a break. It doesn't have to be, someone coming off a screen like Buddy Hield that's open for a 3. But somebody that when you get stuck offensively and when everything else isn't working, somebody that can create something out of nothing. There are few players on that team that can do it. Jimmy Butler being one, Steph obviously being another, and the third being Jonathan Kuminga. And that ability is what separates him from the other quote-unquote scorers on this basketball team. And that's why I think in this series, for somebody who can create on their own, is why I think that he can be a huge plus for the Warriors, not only in this contest, but going forward. I know, listen, I get it, that Steve Kerr's out on him. And I said earlier that in this situation, you got to defer to Steve, right? Don't you hasn't Steve earned our trust at this point that he knows what it is that he's doing and he sees something that's flawed? And so I get it. He's not going to play. And again, I'll defer to Steve. Doesn't mean I necessarily have to agree with it. Because from a guy who's on the outside looking in, I'm not at practice and I don't know Jonathan Kuminga intimately as well as Steve Kerr. I don't have the pedigree of Steve Kerr. Has done just about everything when it comes to the NBA. But I know what it is that I see. And just as a fan who's sitting on his butt watching these games, I'm like, how the hell are you not playing this guy? Is all I'm trying to say when it comes to Jonathan Kuminga. Anything else you see as keys tonight, Post?
I think you nailed it. I think Kuminga's kind of an interesting storyline, but Also, you mentioned it, when you came back from break, was just the energy inside Chase Center. And I think that there's the stigma that you mentioned about, maybe not a stigma, but there's the misconception about Chase Center and how it's not like Oracle Arena, and parts of that are true, but you gotta show up here if you're Warriors fans. You gotta show up. You gotta make sure to bring the energy, because I remember there were the shirts that were on the seats during the playing games, and it took them till halftime to get on the shirts. We gotta bring the energy. Got to bring the energy.
Well,
That's important.
You know what happens to energy, and the difference between Oracle and what's going on out in San Francisco is that a lot of those fans, the hardcore, and this happened out in Oracle as well, they just get priced out, right? Like the hardcore fans, the guys that know their basketball, the people that live and die with the Golden State Warriors and go back in the day, they're just like, dude, I can't afford this. What are you out of your mind, man? You take another mortgage out on the house? This is ridiculous. And so what happens is that you get a lot of corporate America. A lot of people are like, hey, let me wine and dine some clients. I'm going to use, because they have budgets allocated to this. Like, let me go take, somebody to the game because we want their contract. It becomes like a business transaction for a lot of those fans.
And as bad as this sounds, like the people that are probably at postseason games are probably the ones that might be able to afford one of the $20 burgers. I mean, I could be wrong on that,
you're right.
but I mean, is
that what burgers are going for?
What's that?
Is that what a burger's going for?
I mean, I got one of the ones where it was the pretzel bun and there was a cheeseburger, and it was like $18.20, I think.
Yeah, I just think a lot of the hardcore fans just simply are like, I'm out of this, man. I mean, I'll watch it at home. That's not true for all of the fans that are there. Certainly not. I mean, I think hardcore Warrior fans are going to be there tonight, but you need to be a difference maker. It's the NBA and the playoffs, and the home court advantage is real when you talk, especially in these early rounds, and especially when you're talking about some of the younger players to feel more comfortable. So I think it's going to be loud tonight. I'm not worried about that. The Warriors find themselves. It's not. Ev mentioned this, that I think must win. Must win isn't only. It's only applied to when you're down 3-0 or you're facing elimination, right? Like,
you know who needs to step up? I got a name for you.
Go ahead.
Chivano.
What are you doing to me, man?
Seriously,
Really?
no, seriously. Like,
5
what if
minutes
this
of the
is the
show and
game?
you're just going to do this to me?
What if this is the game where Buddy Hield just, has a nice first half, right? And maybe even if he doesn't do anything in the second half, what if Buddy Hield has a great first half where he drops a solid number of threes to where, he could be described as a difference maker by the end of the game?
Yeah, and what if Bill Simmons from The Ringer calls you up and says, you know what? I like your writing tonight, and says, I want you to come join me, and I'm going to give you a $500,000 salary to be a podcaster and to be our lead writer for Grantland's Gone, but for... My point is, yeah, anything can happen. The likelihood, although Pasa, I have confidence in that you will be there one day. It's just maybe not tonight, even though it's your birthday. Yeah, I'd like to see John. You're right. Jonathan Kuminga could be a difference maker. Or excuse me.
Man, I guess that's what happens, huh?
Chivano, our man, Buddy Hield, could be a difference maker. And he has the potential, certainly, right? This is a veteran who has been one of the best three-point shooters since arrival out of the University of Oklahoma. The likelihood, I don't see it. And I say that because of what it is that I've seen in the first two games of the series. And I always maintain that Buddy Hield is a guy that needs space to be effective. Like, Buddy Hield is not creating his own three. Buddy Hield is not sidestepping or mesmerizing you with the handle to shoot his three. He needs help. That's why he's so good in transition. When people are like, who do we pick up? What do we do? It's a little chaos. And yeah, he can get hot. It can happen. We've seen it. But I think that in the postseason, that little space that Buddy Hield needs is erased. And people are in your jock because it's the postseason and it's different. It's just different in the postseason. And I think he's he can be nullified. At least that's what I think. I'd love to see it. I mean, you're right. You need somebody.
And it's almost like everybody's benefited from Jimmy Butler's presence and how I mentioned how it opens up the floor a little bit. It gives guys opportunities. And Buddy Hield just hasn't really cashed in from playing with Jimmy Butler. So, I mean, maybe it's just not a fit of some sort, but he hasn't had the same success that guys like Podziemski and Moody have had with Jimmy.
Yeah, and the other thing with Trevano is that if he's not giving you any offense, which Moses Moody will do through stretches of the course of the game, at least you know that on the defensive end, he's helping you. Trevano is not. And I see a lot of blow-bys of this guy. And also, to use Moses Moody, Podziemski, and Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green and sort of this new attitude with the Warriors, if there's loose balls or these 50-50 balls, there's a good chance the Warriors are coming away with those because that's what they do now. That's where they live, and they're deflecting passes. That's not what Buddy Hield does. And so, like defensively, if there's a loose ball or if he's in the vicinity, I don't have the confidence that he's coming away with that. I just don't. And so if I'm not getting that on the defensive end and he continues with this funk offensively and sometimes he doesn't make the right defensive play or the right basketball play, I don't know. Maybe I'm more out on Buddy Hield than most, and I shouldn't be because he was so good in the beginning of the season. And yes, I'll eat my words if I'd love to see it. I'd love to eat my words if he becomes that guy tonight. But I guess the point you're making, as well as myself, is that somebody else, not named Steph Curry, has got to step to the forefront. And I think the Warriors, without Butler, once again, it's getting revealed or they're shining a light on the fact that this is what the Warriors don't do well, is that they don't have scores or they don't have multiple guys who can get you buckets. And I think that's what it's going to boil down to tonight, Pasta. Final words?
No, it should be an interesting one. And, I think we're going to learn a lot about who the Warriors are without Jimmy Butler. And hopefully it's not who they were without him in the first part of the season.
What's your drink of choice?
Ooh, that's a good question. We'll go with a strawberry margarita.
I'm not buying you one of those, for crying out loud. Are you kidding me? You want me to go to the bar and order anything with the first word strawberry? You're drinking Bushmill Irish whiskey tonight.
That's fine. I mean, I'm not discriminating. You put me on the spot, so that's what came to mind.
No, I'll get you a strawberry.
What about a Golden State cider? You ever had that?
Oh, that sounds good. No, what did you want? I was just joking. Strawberry what?
Strawberry margarita?
Shake? Strawberry margarita. All right.
Lemonade margarita?
You want an umbrella in that thing?
No. That's too much. That's too much. That's way too much.
I love you, man. All right. From a man, Pasta. And, of course, Ev had to cut out early. He's got a game tonight. You know the drill tonight, folks. Warriors Live begins at 4:30. We got the pregame, then tip is at 5:30. It's the Warriors, it's the Rockets, it's Game 3. We'll, of course, have the postgame show. We'll talk about it all next week. Monday, of course, is Game 4. Until then, this is Dan Avone for Pasta and Evan saying enjoy it, everybody. So long.